reads online forums where men say that if all the men in the world had one, everything would be back the way it ought to be. They're angry and afraid. He understands that. Since Delhi, he's been afraid too. He joins UrbanDocSpeaks.com under a pseudonym and posts a few comments and questions. He comes across a sub-forum discussing his own work. They call him a gender traitor there because he did that story about Awadi Atif rather than keeping it secret. And he's not reporting on the men's movement and on their particular conspiracy theories. When he got the email saying something was going to happen here today, he thought... He doesn't know what he thought. That maybe there was something here for him. Not just the news, but something that would explain a feeling he's having these days. But this is nothing. He succumbed to fear, is all it is. Since Delhi, he's running away from the story, not towards it. He'll get online in his hotel this evening and see if there's still anything to report in Sukra, see when the next playing down is. There is a sound like thunder. Tunde looks towards the mountains, expecting to see storm clouds. But it's not a storm, and it's not thunder. The sound comes again, louder, and a huge cloud of smoke erupts from the far end of the mall. And there's screaming. "Shit!" says one of the men with their beers and signs. "I think that's a bomb!" Tunde runs towards the sound, holding his camera very steady. There is a cracking sound, and he hears masonry falling. He rounds the building. The fondue chain place is on fire. Some other units are collapsing. People are running from the building. "There was a bomb!" one of them says, directly into Tunde's camera lens. His face covered in brick dust, small cuts bleeding through his white shirt. "There are people trapped in there!" He likes this version of himself, the one who runs to get closer to danger, not away from it. Every time he does it, he thinks, yes, good, this is still me. But that in itself is a new thought. Tunde circles the wreckage. 2 teenagers have fallen. He helps them up, encourages one to put her arm around the other for support, because her ankle is already blooming great blue bruises. "Who did this?" she cries directly at the lens. "Who did this?" That is the question. Someone has blown up a fondue restaurant, 2 shoe stores, and a well-woman clinic. Tunde stands back from the building and takes a wide-angled shot. It's pretty impressive. To his right, the mall is on fire. To the left, the entire front of the building has come away. A whiteboard with shift allocations still attached to it crashes from the 2nd floor to the ground while he films it. He zooms in. Kayla, 3:30 to 9 p.m. Deborah, 7 a.m. Someone is crying out. Not far away, but hard to spot in the dust on dust, there is a pregnant woman trapped in the rubble. She is lying on her huge belly. She must be 8 months gone. And a concrete pillar is trapping her leg. Something smells of gasoline. Tunde puts down the camera, safely so that it's still recording, and tries to crawl a little closer to her. "It's okay," he says, hopelessly. "Ambulances are coming. It's going to be okay." She screams at him. Her right leg is crushed to bloody meat. She keeps trying to pull away from it, to kick back against the pillar. Tunde's instinct is to hold her hand, but she is discharging with great force every time she kicks against the pillar. It is probably involuntary. Pregnancy hormones increase the magnitude of the power, perhaps a side effect of a number of biological changes during this time. Although people say now, very simply, it's to protect the baby. There are women who've knocked their nurses clean out while giving birth. Pain and fear. These things whittle away control. Tunde shouts out for help. There's no one nearby. "Tell me your name," he says. "I'm Tunde." She winces and says, "Joanna." "Joanna, breathe with me," he says. "In." He holds it for a count of 5. Then out. She tries, grimacing, frowning. She breathes in and puffs it out. "Help is coming," Tunde says. "They'll get you out. Breathe again." In and out. Once more in and out. The spasms are no longer jerking her body. There's a creak in the concrete above them. Joanna tries to crane her neck around. "What's happening?" "It's just some strip lights." Tunde can see them dangling there by just a wire or two. "It sounds like the roof is coming down." "It's not." "Don't leave me here. Don't leave me alone under here." "It's not coming down, Joanna. It's just the lights." One of the fluorescent strips, dangling by a single wire, sways and snaps and crashes into the rubble. Joanna jerks in spasms again, even as Tunde is saying, "It's okay, it's okay." She's breaking again into that uncontrollable cycle of jolts and pain. She's struggling to pull herself out from under the pillar. Tunde is saying, "Please, please, breathe." And she's saying, "Don't leave me here! It's coming down!" She sends her power into the concrete, and a wire thread within the concrete connects with another and another. A light bulb explodes in sparks, and a spark ignites the gasoline-smelling fluid that had been dripping. And there is fire, suddenly all around her. She is still shouting, as Tunde picks up his camera and runs. That's the image they freeze on the screen. They've said there'd be upsetting images after all. No one should be surprised to see this, but isn't it just terrible? Kristin's face is grim. "I think anyone watching would agree that whoever did this is the scum of the earth." In a letter to this news channel, a terrorist group calling itself Male Power has claimed responsibility for the attack, which destroyed a medical clinic catering to women's health issues alongside a busy mall in Tucson, Arizona. They claim the attack is only the first day of action, intended to force the government to act against the so-called enemies of man. A spokesperson for the Office of the President has just completed a press conference giving the strong message that the government of the United States does not negotiate with terrorists, and that the claims of this conspiracy theory splinter group are nonsense. Well now, what are they even protesting about, Tom? Tom scowls, just a micro-expression before the practiced face peels over the real one, the smile smooth as frosting on a cupcake. "They want equality, Kristin." Someone saying, cut to commercial in 30 in their earpieces, and Kristin's trying to wrap it up. But something's going on with Tom. He's not bringing this chat to a conclusion. "Well, Tom, there's no way to take this thing back now. They can't rewind time, although," smile, "in our next segment, we'll be rewinding a little dance history to take you back to a craze called swing." "No," says Tom. "Commercial in 10, says a producer, very calm and level. These things happen. Problems at home, stress, overwork, health anxiety, money worries. They've seen it all, really. "The CDC is hiding things from us," Tom says. "That's what they've been protesting. Have you seen some of that stuff online? Things are being kept from us. Resources are being channeled in the wrong direction. There's no funding for self-defense classes or armor for men, and all this money going to those North Star girls training camps, for God's sake. What the hell is that about? And fuck you, Kristin. We both know you've got this fucking thing, too. And it's changed you. It's made you hard. You're not even a real woman anymore. 4 years ago, Kristin, you knew what you were and what you had to offer this network. And what the fuck are you now?" Tom knows they went to commercial a long time ago now. Probably just after he said no. Probably they thought a few seconds of dead air was better than this. He sits very still after he's finished, looking straight ahead, into the eye of camera 3. That's always been his favourite camera. Shows off the angle of his chin, the little dimple there. He's Kirk Douglas almost on camera 3. He is Spartacus. He always thought he could get into acting eventually. Just small parts to start with. Maybe at first he'd be playing a news anchor, and then something like the teacher in a high school comedy, who turns out to understand the kids better than any of them realized, because, you know, he was pretty wild too way back when. Well, that's all over now. Let it go, Tom. Let those thoughts go from your mind. done?" says Kristen. "Sure." They get him out before they come back off commercial. He doesn't even resist, except that he doesn't like that hand on his shoulder and fights it off. He can't bear a hand touching him, he says, so they let him be. He's worked for a long time, and if he goes easy now, his pension might still be secure. "Tom's been taken sick, very sadly," says Kristen, bright eyes earnest down camera too. "He's okay, and he'll be back with us real soon. And now, the weather on the ones." From his hospital bed in Arizona, Tunde watches the reports of the story unfold. He emails and Facebooks with his family and friends back in Lagos. His sister, Temi, is dating a boy now, someone a couple of years younger than her. She wants to know if Tunde has a girl out there in all this travelling. Tunde tells her there's not much time for that. There had been a white woman for a while, another journalist who he'd met in Singapore and travelled with as far as Afghanistan. She's not worth mentioning. "Come home," says Temi. "Come home for 6 months, and we'll find you a nice girl. You're 27, man. Getting old. It's time to settle down." The white woman, her name was Nina, had said, "Do you think you have PTSD?" It was because she'd used her thing in bed, and he'd shied away from it, told her to stop, started crying. He'd said, "I am stranded a long way from home, and there is no way to get back." "We all are," she'd said. Nothing worse has happened to him than to anyone. There is no reason for him to be afraid, no more reason than any other man. Nina's been texting him since he's been in hospital, asking if she can come and see him. He keeps saying no, not yet. It's while he's in hospital that the email comes in. Just 5 short lines, but the sender address is right. He checks it hasn't been spoofed.
From info@urbandocspeaks.com to olatundeedo@gmail.com. We saw your reporting from the mall in Arizona. We read your essay about what happened to you in Delhi. We are on the same side. We're on the side of all men. If you've seen what happened in the Cleary election, you've understood what we're fighting for. Come and talk to us on the record. We want you on our team. Urban Docs.
It's not even a question. There's still his book to be written. The book. Those 900 pages of chronicle and explanation. He has it all with him on his laptop all the time. There's no question about this. A meeting with Urban Docs. Of course he will. The theatrics around it are ridiculous. He can't bring his own equipment. "We'll give you a phone to record the interview," they tell him. For God's sake. "I understand," he writes back. "You can't compromise your position." They like that. It feeds into their sense of who they are. "You're the only one we trust." They say, "You tell the truth. You have seen the chaos for what it is. You were invited to the action in Arizona, and you came. You are the one we want." The way they talk is positively messianic. "Yes," he emails back. "I have wanted to talk to you for a long time." Of course, there's a meeting point in the parking lot of a Denny's. Of course there is. Of course, there's a blindfold ride in a jeep, and men wearing black, all white men, with balaclavas over their faces. These are men who've watched too many movies. This has become a thing now. Men's movie clubs, in living rooms and back rooms of bars, watching particular kinds of movies over and over again. The ones with explosions and helicopter crashes and guns and muscles and punching. Guy flicks. After all this, when they take off his blindfold, he's in a storage locker. It's dusty. There's someone's old boxes of VHS cassettes labelled A-Team in the corner. And there's Urban Docs, sitting in a chair, smiling. He looks different to his profile pictures. He's in his mid-50s. He's bleached his hair so that it's very pale, almost white. His eyes are a pallid, watery blue. Tunde's read something about this man. There was, by all accounts, a terrible childhood, violence, racial hatred. There was a string of failed businesses, leaving dozens of people owed thousands of dollars each. There was, eventually, a night school law degree, and a reinvention as a blogger. He's well built for a man of his age, though his face is faintly grey. The great change in the tide of things has been good for urban docs. He'd been blogging his mean-spirited, semi-literate, bigoted, angry rhetoric for years, but recently, more and more people, men and indeed some women, have started to listen. He's denied over and over again being tied to the violent splinter groups that have bombarded shopping malls and public parks in half a dozen states now. But if he's not linked to them, they like to link themselves to him. One of the recent accurate bomb threats contained simply an address, a time, and the web address of Urban Docs' latest screed on the coming gender war. He's softly spoken. His voice is more high-pitched than Tunde was expecting. He says, "You know, they're going to try to kill us." Tunde has said to himself, "Just listen." He says, "Who's trying to kill us?" Urban Doc says, "The women." Tunde says, "Aha. Tell me more about that." A sly smile spreads over the man's face. "You've read my blog. You know what I think." "I'd like to hear it in your own words, on tape. I think people would like to hear it. You think the women are trying to kill—" "Oh, I don't think, son. I know. None of this is an accident. They talk about guardian angel, that stuff that got into the water supply, and how it built up in the water table. They say no one could have predicted it. Phooey. Bullcrap. This has been planned. This was decided on. After the end of the Second World War, when the peaceniks and do-gooders had the upper hand, they decided to put this stuff in the water. They thought men had had their turn, and we'd messed it up. 2 world wars in 2 generations. Pussy-whip beaters and faggots, all of them." Tunde's read this theory before. You can't have a good conspiracy plot without any conspirators. He's only surprised that Urban Docs hasn't mentioned Jews. "The Zionists use the concentration camps as emotional blackmail to get the stuff shipped out in the water." There we go. It was a declaration of war. Silent, stealthy. They armed their warriors before they sounded the first battle cry. They were among us before we even knew we'd been invaded. Our own government has the cure, you know. They've got it under lock and key, but they won't use it except on the precious few. And the end game? You know, the end game? They hate us all. They want us all dead. Tunde thinks of the women he's known. Some of the journalists he was in Basra with. Some of the women from the siege in Nepal. There have been women these past years who have put their bodies between him and harm so he could take his footage out to the world. "They don't," he says. Shit! That was not what he meant to do. Urban Docs laughs. "They've got you right where they want you, son. Under the thumb. Believing they're crap. Bet a woman's helped you once or twice, right? She's taken care of you. She's looked after you. She protected you when you were in trouble." Tunde nods warily. "Well, shit, of course they do that. They want us docile and confused. Old army tactic. If you're only ever an enemy, the people will know to fight you wherever they see you. If you hand out candy to the kids and medicine to the weak, you jumble their minds up. They don't know how to hate you. See?" "Yes, I see." "It's starting already. Have you seen the numbers on domestic violence against men? On murders of men by women?" He has seen those numbers. He carries them with him like a lozenge of ice lodged in his throat. "That's how it starts," says Urban Docs. That's how they soften us up, make us weak and afraid. That's how they have us where they want us. It's all part of a plan. They're doing it because they've been told to. Tunde thinks, no, that's not the reason. The reason is because they can. Are you being funded, he says, by the exiled King Awadi Atif of Saudi Arabia? Urban Docs smiles. There are a lot of men out there who are worried about where this thing is heading, my friend. Some of them are weak, traitors to their gender and their people. Some of them think the women will be kind to them. But a lot of them know the truth. We haven't had to go begging for money. And you said the endgame. Urban Doc shrugs. Like I say, they want to kill us all. But the survival of the human race? Women are just animals, says Urban Docs. Just like us, they want to mate, reproduce, have healthy offspring. One woman, though, she's pregnant for 9 months. She can care for maybe 5 or 6 kids well across her life. So, Urban Docs frowns, like this is the most obvious thing in the world. They'll only keep the most genetically healthy of us alive. See, this is why God meant men to be the ones with the power. However bad we treat a woman, well, it's like a slave. Tunde feels his shoulders tighten. Say nothing, just listen, take the footage, use it, and sell it. Make money out of this scumbag. Sell him out. Show him up for what it is. See, people got slavery wrong. If you have a slave, that slave's your property. You don't want damage to come to it. However bad any man treated a woman, he needs her in a fit condition to carry a child. But now, one genetically perfect man can sire 1,000, 5,000 children? And what do they need the rest of us for? They're going to kill us all. Listen to me. Not 1 in 100 will live. Perhaps not 1 in 1,000. And your evidence for that is, oh, I've seen documents. More than that, I can use my brain. So can you, son. I've watched you. You're smart. Urban Docs lays a moist, clammy hand on Tunde's arm. Join us. Become part of what we're doing. We'll be there for you, son, when all these others have gone away, because we're on the same side. Tunde nods. We need laws now to protect men. We need curfews on women. We need the government to release all the funding they need to research that cure. We need man to stand up and be counted. We are being ruled by fags who worship women. We need to cut them down. And that's the purpose of your terror attacks. Urban Doc smiles again. You well know that I have never initiated or encouraged a terror attack. Yes, he's been very careful. But, says Urban Docs, if I were in touch with any of those men, I'd guess they'd barely gotten started. A bunch of weapons got lost in the fall of the Soviet Union. You know? Real nasty stuff. Could be they have some of that. Wait, says Tunde. Are you threatening to orchestrate domestic terrorism with nuclear weapons? I'm not threatening anything, says Urban Docs, his eyes pale and cold. Ali. Mother Eve, will you give me your blessing? The boy is sweet. Fluffy blonde hair, a freckled, creamy face. He can't be more than 16. His English is prettily accented, with the mid-European tones of Bessapara. They've picked a good one. Ali is only just on 20 herself, and although she has an air to her, an old soul, the piece in the New York Times reported several celebrity acolytes saying, There's still that danger that she doesn't always look to have quite the gravitas needed. The young are close to God, they say, and young women especially. Our Lady was only 16 years old when she bore her sacrifice into the world. Still, it's often as well to start with the blessing of someone who looks definitively younger. "Come close," says Allie, "and tell me your name." The cameras push in on the blonde boy's face. He's already crying and shaking. The crowd is mostly quiet. The sound of 30,000 people breathing is broken only by the occasional shout of, "Praise the Mother," or simply, "Praise her." The boy says, very quietly, "Christian." There's a sound at that, an indrawn breath around the stadium. "That is a very good name," says Allie. "Don't fear that it's not a good name." Christian is all sobs. His mouth is open and wet and dark. "I know this is hard," says Allie, "but I am going to hold your hand, and when I do, the peace of our mother will enter into you. Do you understand?" There is a magic in this, in telling what will happen, in saying it with full conviction. Christian nods again. Allie takes his hand. The camera holds steady for a moment on the pale hand clasped in the darker. Christian steadies. His breathing becomes more even. When the image pulls out, he is smiling, calm, even poised. "Now, Christian, you haven't been able to walk since you were a child, have you?" "No." "What happened?" Christian motions to his legs, lumpen underneath a blanket swaddling the lower half of his body. "I fell off a swing," he says, "when I was 3. I broke my back." He smiles, full of trust. He makes a motion with his hands, as if he were breaking a pencil between his fingers. "You broke your back? And the doctors have told you you'll never walk again. That's right, isn't it?" Christian nods slowly. "But I know I will," he says, his face peaceful. "I know you will too, Christian, because the mother has shown it to me." And the people who curate these events for her, and make sure that the nerve damage isn't too severe for her to be able to do anything. Christian had a friend from the same hospital, a nice kid, even more of a believer than Christian himself, but unfortunately, the break was too profound for them to be sure she'd be able to cure it. Besides, he wasn't right for this televised segment. Acne. Allie lays her palm at the top of Christian's spine, just at the back of his neck. He shudders. The crowd gasps and goes silent. She says in her heart, "What if I can't do it this time?" The voice says, "Kid, you always say that. You're golden." Mother Eve speaks from Allie's mouth. She says, "Holy Mother, guide me now, as you have always guided me." The crowd says, "Amen!" Mother Eve says, "Not my will, Holy Mother, but thine be done. If it is your will to heal this child, let him be healed. And if it be your will that he suffer in this world to reap a great harvest in the next, let that be done." This is an exceedingly important caveat, which it's as well to get in early. The crowd says, "Amen!" Mother Eve says, "But there's a great multitude praying for this humble and obedient young boy, Holy Mother. There's a great crowd here, pleading with you now, yearning for your grace to fall upon him, and your breath to raise him up as you raised up Mary for your service. Holy Mother, listen to our prayers." The crowd is full of people rocking back and forth on their heels and weeping and muttering, and the simultaneous translators at either side of the stadium are racing to keep up with Allie, as Mother Eve's words spill from her faster and faster. While her mouth is moving, Ali's tendrils of power are probing Christian's spine, feeling out the blockage here and here, and where a boost would get his muscles moving. She almost has it. Mother Eve says, "As we've all lived blessed lives, as we all strive every day to listen to your voice inside us, as we all honor our mothers and the sacred light inside every human heart, as we all worship and adore you and love you and kneel before you, Holy Mother, please take the force of our prayers. Please, Holy Mother, use me to show your glory and heal this boy now!" The crowd roars. Ali delivers 3 swift pinpricks to Christian's spine, flicking the nerve cells around the muscles of his legs into life. His left leg swings up, kicking at the blanket. Christian looks at it bemused, startled, a little afraid. The other leg kicks. He's crying now, tears pouring down his face. This poor kid, who hasn't walked or run since he was 3 years old, who's suffered the bed sores and the muscle wasting, who's had to use his arms to carry himself from bed to chair, chair to toilet. His legs are moving from the thigh now, jerking and kicking. He levers himself up from the chair with his arms now, his legs still twitching and holding onto the rail put there for the purpose. He walks 1, 2, 3 stiff and awkward steps before clinging there, upright and weeping. Some of Mother Eve's people come to take him off stage, one on either side of him, and he's saying, "Thank you, thank you, thank you," as they lead him away. Sometimes it sticks. There are cases of people she's cured, who are still walking or holding things or seeing months later. There is even starting to be some scientific interest in what it might be she's actually doing. Sometimes it doesn't stick at all. They have a moment on stage. They feel what it's like to walk or pick something up with a dead arm, and after all, that's something they wouldn't have had without her. The voice says, "You never know. If they had more faith, maybe it would have stuck around longer." Mother Eve says to those she helps, "God has shown you a taste of what she can do. Just keep praying." They take a little interlude after the healing, so that Ali can get a glass of something cold behind the stage, and to bring the crowd down a little from its fever pitch, and remind them that all this has been funded by good people like them who opened their hearts and their wallets. On the big screens, they show a video of the good works done by the church. The screens show Mother Eve giving comfort to the sick. There's a video, it's an important one, of her holding the hand of a woman who was beaten and abused, but whose skein never came in. She's crying. Mother Eve tries to wake up the power inside her, but though she prays for help, the power won't come to this poor woman. That's why they're looking into transplants, she says, from cadavers. They have teams working on it already. Your money can help. There are friendly messages of greeting from chapter houses in Michigan and Delaware, with news of saved souls, and from missions in Nairobi and Sucre, where the Catholic Church is eating itself alive. And there are videos of the orphanages Mother Eve set up. At first, there were girls set loose by their families, wandering confused and alone, like shivering stray dogs. As Mother Eve's power grew, she said to the older women, "Take in the younger. Set up homes for them, as I was taken in when I was weakened and afraid. The least you do for them, you do for our own Holy Mother." Now, a scant few years later, there are homes for young people all over the world. They take in young men and young women, too. They give them shelter. They give them better outcomes than state-run facilities. Ali, passed from pillar to post throughout her life, knows how to give good instruction in this matter. In the video, Mother Eve is visiting homes for abandoned children in Delaware and in Missouri, in Indonesia and in Ukraine. Each group of girls and boys greets her as Mother. The video ends on a musical trill, and Allie wipes the sweat off her face and goes back outside. "Now I know," says Mother Eve to the crowd, full of crying, shaking, shouting people. "I know there's been a question in some of your minds for these long months, and that is why I'm so happy to be here today to answer your questions." There's another round of shouts and "Praise!" from the crowd. To be here in Bessapara, the land where God has shown her wisdom and her mercy, is a great blessing to me. For you know that Our Lady has told me that women are to gather together and to perform great wonders and to be a blessing and a consolation to each other. And, she pauses after each word for emphasis, where have women gathered together more than here? Stamping, hollering, whoops of delight. We've shown what the power of a mighty crowd praying together can do for that young man, Christian, haven't we? We've shown that the Holy Mother cares for men and women alike. She doesn't withhold her mercy. She won't send her goodness just to the women, but to anyone who believes in her. She makes her voice soft and low. And I know some of you have been asking, what about the goddess who's meant so much to y'all? What about she whose symbol is the eye in the palm of the hand? That simple faith that sprang up from the soil in this good country. What about that? Allie allows the crowd to go very quiet. She stands with her arms folded in front of her chest. There's weeping and rocking among the people gathered here. There's waving of banners. She waits a good long while, breathing in and out. She says in her heart, "Am I ready?" The voice says, "You were made for this, child. Preach it." Allie unfolds her arms and holds her palms up to face the audience. In the center of each one is tattooed an eye, with the tendrils extending out. The crowd explodes in screams and cheers and stamping of feet. The men and women in the audience surge forward, and Allie feels grateful for the crash barriers and the ambulance people standing in the aisles. They're climbing over seats to get closer to her. They're panting and sobbing. They're breathing in her breath. They want to eat her alive. Mother Eve speaks calmly over the din. She says, "All gods are one God. Your goddess is another way that the One has expressed herself in the world. She came to you as she came to me, preaching compassion and hope, teaching vengeance against those who have wronged us and love for those who are close to us. Your goddess is Our Lady. They are one." Behind her, the rippling silk curtain that has stood as a backdrop to the event all evening falls gently to the ground. It reveals a painting, 20 feet high, of a proud, buxom woman in blue, her eyes kind, the skein prominent across her collarbone, an all-seeing eye in the palm of each hand. Several people faint at that moment, and some begin speaking in tongues. "Good work," says the voice. "I like this country," says Allie, in her heart. On her way out of the building towards the armored car, Allie checks her messages from Sister Maria Ignatia, her trusted and loyal friend at home. They've been following the chatter online about Alison Montgomery Taylor, and although Allie's never acknowledged why she wants the files on that case to disappear, she asked Sister Maria Ignatia if she could somehow make it happen. It will just get harder as the months and years go on. There's always going to be someone wanting to make money or influence out of this story. And although Allie thinks any reasonable court would acquit her, there's just no need to go through it. It's late at night in Bessapara, but it's only 4 p.m. on the East Coast, and thankfully, there's a message. Some loyal members of the new church back in Jacksonville have sent one saying that with the help of an influential sister in God, all the documentation and electronic files relating to this Allison Montgomery Taylor will be dealt with. The email says, everything will disappear. It seems like a prophecy, or a warning. The email doesn't name the influential sister in God, but there's only one woman Allie can think of who could make police files disappear just like that. Just by making a phone call, maybe. Just by making one to call someone she knows. It must be Roxy. You look after us, and we'll look after you, she'd said. Well, good. Everything will disappear. Later, Allie and Tatiana Moskalev eat a late supper. Even with the war, even with the fighting on the northern front with the Moldovan troops and the standoff in the east with Russia herself, even still, the food is pretty good. President Moskalev of Bessapara lays on roast pheasant and Hasselback potatoes with sweet cabbage for Mother Eve of the new church, and they toast each other in good red wine. "We need a fast victory," says Tatiana. Allie chews slowly and thoughtfully. "Can you have a fast victory 3 years into a war?" Tatiana laughs. "The real war hasn't even begun yet. They're still fighting with conventional weapons up there in the hills. They try to invade, we push them back. They throw grenades, we shoot." Electrical power's no use against missiles and bombs. Tatiana sits back, crosses one leg over the other, looks at her. "Do you think so?" She frowns, amused. "For one, wars aren't won by bombs. They're won on the ground. And for two, have you seen what a full dose of that drug can do?" Allie has seen it. Roxy showed her. It's hard to control. Allie wouldn't want to take it. Control has always been her speciality. But a full dose of the glitter, and 3 or 4 women could take down the electricity of the island of Manhattan. You still have to be near enough to touch them. Make a connection? "There are ways to arrange that. We've seen photographs of them working on it themselves." "Ah," says the voice. "She's talking about that exiled king of Saudi Arabia." "Awadi Atif," says Allie. "He's just using our country as a trial, you know." Tatiana swallows down another gulp of wine. "They're sending in some of their men in rubber suits with their stupid battery packs on their backs. He wants to show that the change means nothing. He still holds to his old religion, and he thinks he's getting his country back." Tatiana makes a long arc between her left palm and her right, spools it out idly, winds it back and breaks it with a snap. "The hairdresser," she says with a smile, "didn't know what she was starting." She looks directly at Allie, a sudden, intense stare. "Awadi Atif thinks he's been sent on a holy war, and I think he's right. I was chosen by God for this." "She wants you to tell her she was," says the voice. "Tell her." "You were," says Allie. "God has a special mission for you." "I have always believed there was something greater than me, something better. And when I saw you, the force in the way you speak to the people, I see that you are her messenger, and you and I have met at this time for this reason, to bring this message to the world." The voice says, "Didn't I tell you I had some things in store for you?" Allie says, "So, when you say you want a fast victory, you mean that when Awadi Atif sends down his electric troops, you want to destroy them utterly. Tatiana waves a hand. I have chemical weapons left over from Cold War. If I wanted to destroy them utterly, I could do it. No. She leans forward. I want to humiliate them. Show that this mechanical power cannot compare with what we have in our bodies. The voice says, Do you see it? And Ali does see it, suddenly and all at once. Awadi Atif of Saudi Arabia has armed the troops in North Moldova. They plan to retake Bessapara, the Republic of the Women. For them, this would show that this change is merely a minor deviation from the norm, that the right way will reassert itself. And if they lose, and lose utterly, Ali begins to smile. The Holy Mother's way will spread across the world, from person to person, from country to country. The thing will be over before it's begun. Tatiana raises her glass for a toast. I knew you would see it when we invited you here. I hoped you would understand what I mean. The world is watching this war. She wants you to bless her war, says the voice. Tricky. Tricky if she loses, says Ali in her heart. I thought you wanted to be safe, says the voice. You told me I couldn't be safe unless I owned the place, says Ali in her heart. And I told you that you couldn't get there from here, says the voice. Whose side are you on anyway, says Ali. Mother Eve speaks slowly and carefully. Mother Eve measures her words. Nothing that Mother Eve says is without consequence. She looks directly into the camera and waits for the red light to flash on. We don't have to ask ourselves what the Saudi royal family will do if they win this war, she says. We've already seen it. We know what happened in Saudi Arabia for decades, and we know that God turned her face from it in horror and disgust. We don't have to ask ourselves who is on the side of justice when we meet the brave fighters of Bessapara, many of whom were trafficked women, shackled women, women who would have died alone in the dark if God had not sent her light to guide them. This country, she says, is God's country, and this war is God's war. With her help, we shall have a mighty victory. With her help, everything will be overturned. The red light blinks off. The message goes out across the world. Mother Eve and her millions of loyal followers on YouTube and Instagram, on Facebook and Twitter, her donors and her friends, are with Bessapara and the Republic of the Women. They've made their choice. Margot. I'm not saying you have to break up with him. Mom, that is what you're saying. I'm just saying, read the reports, see for yourself. If you're giving them to me, I already know what's in them. Just read them. Margot gestures to the pile of papers on the coffee table. Bobby did not want to have this conversation. Maddie's out at taekwondo practice, so it's up to her, of course. Bobby's exact words had been, "It's your political career you're worried about, so you handle it." Whatever those papers say, Mom, Ryan's a good person. He's a kind person. He's good to me. He's been on extremist sites, Joss. He posts under a false name on sites that talk about organizing terror attacks. They have links with some of those groups. Jocelyn is crying now, frustrated, angry tears. He'd never do that. He probably just wanted to see what they're saying, Mom. We met online. We both go to some crazy sites. Margot picks up one of the pages at random, reads out the highlighted section. Buck Yu, nice name he's picked there, says, Things have gotten out of hand. Those North Star camps, for one thing. If people knew what they were learning there, we'd put a bullet in every girl in the place. She pauses, looks at Jocelyn. Joss says, "How do they even know that's him?" Margot waves at the thick file of documents. "Oh, I don't know. They have their ways." This is the tricky part. Margot holds her breath. Will Joss buy it? Joss looks at her, lets out one quick sob. "The Department of Defense is vetting you, isn't it? Because you're going to be a senator? And they want you on the Defense Committee like you told me?" Hook, line, and sinker. "Yes, Jocelyn. That is why the FBI found this stuff. Because I have an important job, and I'm not going to apologize for that." She pauses. "I thought we were in this together, honey. And you need to know that this Ryan's not what you think. He was just trying something out, probably. Those are things from 3 years ago. We all say stupid stuff online, okay? Just to get a reaction." Margot sighs. "I don't know if we can be sure of that, honey." "I'll talk to him. He's..." Joss starts crying again. Loud, long, deep sobs. Margot scoots towards her on the couch, puts a tentative arm around Joss's shoulders. Joss sinks into her, burying her face in Margot's chest and crying, just like she did when she was a child. "There'll be other boys, honey. There'll be other, better boys." Joss lifts her face. "I thought we were supposed to be together." "I know, sweetheart, because of your..." Margot hesitates over the word. "Because of your problem. You wanted someone who'd understand." She wishes they'd been able to find help for Joss. They're still looking. But the older she gets, the more intractable the problem seems to be. Sometimes she has all the power she wants, and sometimes nothing. Joss's sobs slow to a trickle. Margot brings her a cup of tea, and they sit in silence for a while on the couch, Margot's arm around Joss. After a long while, Margot says, "I still think we can find some help for you. If we could find someone to help you, well, you'd just be able to like normal boys." Joss puts her cup down on the table slowly. She says, "Do you really think so?" And Margot says, "I know it, honey, I know it. You can be just like all the other girls. I know we can fix it for you." This is what it means to be a good mother. Sometimes you can see what your kids need better than they can. Roxy. "Come home," says the message. "Ricky's been hurt." She's supposed to be going to Moldova. Supposed to be training women in how to use the glitter to fight. But she can't. Not with a message like that on her phone. She stayed out of Ricky's way mostly, since she got back from America. She's got her own thing with the glitter, and it's making them good money. Roxy used to long to be invited into that house. Bernie's given her a key now. She's got a guest bedroom for when she's not out at the Black Sea. But it's not what she thought it'd be. Barbara, the mother of the 3 boys, hasn't been right since Terry died. There's a big photo of Terry on the mantelpiece, with fresh flowers in front of it, changed every 3 days. Daryl's still living there. He's taken on the betting, because he's got the brain for it. Ricky's got his own place up in Canary Wharf. Roxy thinks, when she reads that text, of the different firms that could have it in for them, and what hurt means. If it's war, they need her home for sure. But it's Barbara who's waiting for her in the front garden when she gets there, smoking non-stop, lighting the next one from the embers of the last. Bernie's not even home. So it's not war. It's something else. Barbara says, "Ricky's been hurt." Roxy says, knowing the answer, "Was it one of the other firms? That Romanian lot?" Barbara shakes her head. She says, They fucked him up for fun. Roxy says, Dad knows people. You didn't need to call me. Barbara's hands are shaking. No, it's not for them. It's a family thing. So Roxy knows exactly what kind of thing has happened to Ricky. Ricky's got the TV on, but the sound's off. There's a blanket over his knees and bandages under that. Doctor's been and gone, so there's nothing to see anyway. Roxy's got girls working for her, who were held by blokes in Moldova. She saw what one of them had done to the 3 men who'd taken turns with her. Down there, it was just burned flesh. Fern patterns on the thighs, pink and brown and raw red and black, like a Sunday roast. Ricky doesn't seem that bad. He'll probably be fine. This kind of thing heals. She's heard that things can be difficult afterwards, though. It can be hard to get over. She says, Just tell me what happened. Ricky looks at her, and he's grateful. And his gratitude is terrible. She wants to hug him, but she knows that'd just make it worse for him somehow. You can't be the one that hurts and the one that comforts. She can't give Ricky anything but justice. He tells her what happened. He was pissed, obviously. Out with some mates, dancing. He's got a couple of girlfriends, Ricky, but he never minds finding someone new for the night. And the girls know not to bother him about it. That's just how he is. Roxy's the same these days. Sometimes there's a bloke and sometimes there isn't, and it doesn't matter much to her either way. This time, Ricky got 3 girls, said they were sisters, but they didn't look like sisters. He thinks it was a joke. One of them sucked him off by the kitchen bins outside the club. Whatever she did, it made his head spin. He looks ashamed when he says it, like he thinks he should have done something different. When she was finished, the others were waiting, and he went, "Give me a minute, girls. Can't do you all at once." And they were on him. There's a thing you can do to a bloke. Roxy's done it herself. A little bit of a spark in the back passage, and up he comes, neat as anything. It's fun, if you want it. Hurts a bit, but fun. Hurts a lot if you don't want it. Ricky kept on saying he didn't want it. They took their turns on him. They were just trying to hurt him, he says, and he was saying, did they want money? What did they want? But one of them got him in the throat and he couldn't make another sound until they were finished. The whole thing took half an hour. Ricky thought he might die there, in between the black bags and the thick grease coating the paving stones. He could see them finding his body, white legs marked with red scars. He could see a copper turning out his pockets and saying, "You'll never guess who this is. Only Ricky Monk." And his face fish white and his lips blue. Ricky kept very still until it was over, and didn't say nothing and didn't do nothing. Just waited for it to be done. Roxy knows why they haven't called Bernie home. He'd hate Ricky for this, even if he tried not to. This is not what happens to a man. Except now, it is. The stupid thing is that he does know them. The more he thinks about it, the more he's sure. He's seen them around. He doesn't think they know who he is. You'd think they'd have been scared otherwise to do what they did. But he knows people he's seen with them. One of them's called Manda, he's pretty sure. One of them's Sam. Roxy gets an idea, looks at a couple of people on Facebook, shows him some photos until he starts to shake. It's not hard to find them. It doesn't take Roxy more than 5 phone calls to someone who knows someone who knows someone. She doesn't say why she's asking, but she doesn't need to. She's Roxy Monk and people want to help her. They're drinking in a pub in Vauxhall. They're tanked up. They're laughing. They'll be here till closing. Roxy's got some good girls here in London now. Girls who run the business for her and collect the profits and knock the heads together that need knocking. It's not that a bloke couldn't do the job. Some of them would do it handy. But it's better if they don't need a gun. They're noisy, draw attention, they're messy. Quick Barney ends up with a double murder and 30 years in prison. For a job like this, you take girls. Except when she gets dressed and comes downstairs, there's Darryl waiting by the front door. He's got a sawn-off on his arm. "What?" says Roxy. I'm coming, says Darryl. She thinks for a moment of saying, sure, and knocking him cold when he turns away. But after what's happened to Ricky, it wouldn't be right. You keep yourself safe, she says. Yeah, he goes. I'll stick behind you. He's younger than her, only by a few months. That's one of the things that's always been so hard, Bernie knocking up both their mums at the same time. She grabs his shoulder and squeezes it. She calls another couple of lasses to come too. Vivica, with one of those long-pronged conductive batons, and Danny, with a mesh of metal net that she likes. They all take a little bit before they head out the door, and there's music playing in Roxy's head. Sometimes it's good to go to war, just to know you can. They follow that little knot of girls from the pub at a bit of a distance, till they walk through the park, shouting and drinking. It's past 1 a.m. It's a hot night. The air feels damp, like there's a storm brewing. Roxy and her gang are dressed dark. They're moving smoothly. The girls run towards the merry-go-round in the kids' playground. They lie back on it, staring at the stars, passing the vodka between them. Roxy says, now. Merry-go-round's made of steel. They light the thing up, and one of the girls falls off, frothing and twitching. So now they're 2 on 4. Easy. What's this? Says a girl in a dark blue bomber jacket. Ricky had pointed her photo out as the leader. What the fuck is this? I don't even know you! She makes a bright warning arc between her palms. Yeah, says Roxy. You bloody knew my brother, though. Ricky. Picked him up in a club last night. Ricky Monk. Oh, fuck, says the other girl, the one wearing leathers. Shut up, says the first girl. We don't know your fucking brother, all right? Sam, says the girl in leathers. Fuck's sake! She turns to Roxy, pleading. We didn't know he was your brother. He never said nothing. Sam mutters something that sounds like, he bloody loved it. The girl in leathers puts her hands up and takes a pace backwards. Darryl gets her square in the back of the head with the butt of the shotgun. She falls forward, teeth into the soil and scrub. So now they're 4 against 1. Closing in. Danny sifts a little mesh net in her left hand. Sam says, he was asking for it. He begged us for it, fucking begged us, followed us, told us what he wanted done to him, filthy little scrope. Knew just what he was looking for, couldn't get enough of it, wanted us to hurt him, would have licked up my piss if I'd asked him. That's your fucking brother. Looks like butter wouldn't melt, but he's a dirty little boy. Yeah, well, might be true, might not. Roxy's seen some things. She still shouldn't have touched a monk, should she? She'll ask Ricky's mates about it quietly when all this is over, and maybe she'll have to tell him not to be a stupid boy. If he wants that kind of thing, she can find someone safe to oblige. Don't you talk about my fucking brother like that! Darryl yells suddenly, and he's aiming the shotgun butt for her face, but she's too quick for him, and it's metal, that shotgun, so when she grabs it, he gasps and his knees buckle. Sam gets one arm around Darryl, his whole body shuddering. It was a big jolt she gave him. His eyes are rolling back in his head. Fuck! If they hit her, they hit him. Fuck! Sam starts to back away. Don't you bloody follow me, she says. Don't you bloody come near me or I'll finish him like I did your Ricky. I can do worse than that. Darryl's close to tears now. Roxy can tell what she's doing to him. A constant pulse of shocks into the neck, the throat, the temples. It's most painful at the temples. This isn't over, Roxy says quietly. You can get away now, but we'll come back for you until it's done. Sam smiles, all white teeth and blood. Maybe I'll do him now then, for fun. That's not clever, says Roxy, 'cause then we really would have to kill you. She gives the nod to Viv, who circled back round during the commotion. Viv swings her baton. She gives a whack to the back of Sam's head, like a sledgehammer taking out dry wall. Sam turns slightly, sees it coming, but she can't put Darryl down in time to duck. The baton catches the side of her eye, and there's a burst of blood. She screams out once and falls to the floor. Fuck, says Darryl. He's crying and shaking. There's not much they can do about that. "If she'd seen what you were doing, she'd have killed me." "You're alive, aren't you?" says Roxy. She doesn't say anything about how he shouldn't have gone for Sam with the shotgun, and she thinks that's fair enough. Roxy takes her time in marking them. Don't want them to forget it. Not ever. Ricky won't be able to forget it. She leaves them with a spiderweb of red, unfolding scars over their cheeks and mouth and nose. She takes a photo with her phone, so Ricky can see what she's done. The scars and the blind eye. Only Barbara's awake when they get in. Darryl goes to bed, but Roxy sits at the little table in the back kitchen, and Barbara flicks through the photos on the phone, nodding with a mouth like a stone. "All still alive," she says. "Even called 999 for 'em." Barbara says, "Thank you, Roxanne. I'm grateful. You've done a good thing here." Roxy says, "Yep." The clock ticks. Barbara says, "I'm sorry we were unkind to you." Roxy raises an eyebrow. "I wouldn't say the word for it was unkind, Barbara." Which is harsher than she meant. But there's a lot happened when she was a kid. Those parties she couldn't come to, and the presents she never got, and the family dinners she was never invited to, and that time that Barbara came round to the house and threw paint at the windows. "You didn't need to do this tonight for Ricky. I didn't think you would." "Some of us don't hold grudges. All right." Barbara looks like she'd slapped her in the face. "It's all right," says Roxy, "'cause it is now. It's been all right maybe since Terry died." She chews her lip a bit. "You never liked me 'cause of whose daughter I was. I never expected you would like me. It's all right. We stay out of each other's way, don't we? It's just business." She stretches, her skein tautening across her chest, her muscles suddenly heavy and tired. Barbara looks at her, eyes slightly narrowed. "There's stuff Ma Byrne still hasn't told you, you know. About how the business runs. Dunno why." "He was saving it for Ricky," says Roxy. "Yeah," says Barbara. "I think he was. But Ricky's not going to take it now." She stands up, goes over to the kitchen cupboard. From the third shelf, she takes out the bags of flour and the boxes of biscuits. And there, right at the back, she sticks her nail into an almost invisible crack and opens up a hidden cubbyhole, not wider than your hand. She pulls out 3 small black notebooks held together by an elastic band. "Contacts," she says. "Narcs, bent coppers, rotten doctors. I've been saying for months Byrne should just give this all to you, so you could work out how to sell the glitter yourself." Roxy holds out her hand, takes the books, feels the weight and solidity of them in her palm. All the knowledge of how the business is run in a compact block, a brick of information. "Because of what you did today," says Barbara, "for Ricky, I'll square it with Bernie." And she takes her mug of tea and goes to bed. Roxy stays up the rest of that night back at her own place, going through the books, making notes and plans. There are contacts here go back years. Connections her dad's been developing, people he's been blackmailing or bribing, and the latter usually leads to the former eventually. Barbara doesn't know what she's given her here. With the stuff in these books, she can take the glitter across Europe, no bother. The monks can make more money than anyone's made since Prohibition. She's smiling, and her one knee's joggling up and down when she runs her eye along a row of names and sees something important. It takes her a bit to work out what it is she's seen. Some bit of her brain got there ahead of all the rest, told her to read and reread the list till it jumped out at her. There. A name. A bent copper. Detective Newland. Newland. 'Cause she'll never forget that thing Primrose said when he died, will she? She'll never forget any of what happened that day her whole life long. Newland said, You weren't going to be home, Primrose had said. This copper, this Newland, he was part of the plan to kill her mum, and she's never known who he was, not till now. She thought it was done, a long time since, but when she sees the name, and she remembers, she thinks, fuck. Some dodgy copper selling stuff to my dad, selling stuff to Primrose, fuck. She thinks, some dodgy copper watching our house and saying when I wouldn't be home. A quick search of the internet is all it takes. Detective Newland lives in Spain now. Retired policeman, little town. Doesn't think anyone's going to come looking for him, obviously. She never meant to tell Darryl about it. It was only that he came himself to thank her for what she'd done for Ricky, and for saving his own life. He said, "We know which way this is going. Ricky's out of the picture now. If there's anything I can do to help you, Rox, just tell me what I can do." Maybe he started to have the same thoughts she has, about how you just have to accept this change that struck us all, roll with it, find your place in it. So she told Darryl what she was going to Spain for. He said, "I'm coming too." She sees what he's asking her for. Ricky's not coming back to the life. Not for years, maybe not ever, and not how he was. They're running out of family. He wants to be family to her. The place isn't difficult to find. GPS and a rental car, and they're there in less than an hour from Seville Airport. There's no need to be clever about it. They watch through binoculars for a couple of days, long enough to know that he lives alone. They stay in a hotel nearby, but not too nearby. 30 miles drive. You wouldn't go looking there if you were local police, not if you were doing a routine just-in-case inquiry. He's nice with it, Darryl. Businesslike, but funny. Lets her make the decisions, but he's got a few good ideas of his own. She thinks, yeah, if Ricky's out of the game, yeah, this could work. She could take him to the factory next time she goes out. On the third day, in the pre-dawn light, they chuck a rope up one of the fence poles, climb over and wait in the bushes till he comes out. He's in shorts and a ragged t-shirt. He's got a sandwich. This time in the morning, a sausage sandwich. And he's looking at his phone. She'd been expecting something. Some kind of terror to strike her. She'd thought she might wee herself, or have a rush of bloody rage, or start crying. But when she looks into his face, all she feels is interest. A completed circle. 2 bits of string tied together. The man who helped get her mum killed. This last little bit of stuff to mop up from the side of the plate. She steps out of the bushes in front of him. "Newland," she says. "Your name is Newland." He looks at her, open-mouthed. He's still holding his sausage sandwich. There's a second before the fear kicks in. And in that second, Darryl charges from the bushes, clonks him on the head, and pushes him into the swimming pool. When he comes round, the sun is high in the sky, and he's floating face up. He thrashes around, brings himself to standing in the middle of the pool, coughing and rubbing his eyes. Roxy's sitting at the edge, fingers splashing. "Electricity travels a long way in water," she says. "It's fast." Newland stands stock still at that. She tips her head first to one side, then the other, stretching out the muscles. Her skein's full. Newland starts to say something. Maybe it's, "I don't," or "Who are?" But she sends a little thrill through the water, enough to prickle him over his whole wet body. She says, "This is going to be boring if you start denying everything, Detective Newland." "Fuck," he says. "I don't even know who you are. If this is about Lisa, she got her fucking money, all right. She got it 2 years ago, every penny, and I'm out now." Roxy sends another shot through the water. "Think again," she says. "Look at my face." Don't I remind you of anyone? Aren't I someone's daughter? He knows it then, all at once. She can see it in his face. Fuck, he says. This about Christina? Yeah, she says. Please, he says. And then she sends him a hard jolt, so much that his teeth start chattering, and his body goes rigid, and he shits himself right into the water, a brown-yellow cloud of particles jetting out like it's shot from a hose. Rox, says Darryl softly. He's sitting behind her, on one of the sun loungers, his hand on the butt of the rifle. She stops it. Newland collapses, sobbing into the water. Don't say please, she says. That's what my mum said. He rubs his forearms, trying to get some life back into them. There's no way out of this for you, Newland. You told Primrose where to find my mum. You got her killed, and I'm going to kill you. Newland tries to make a break for the edge of the pool. She shocks him again. His knees collapse under him, and he falls forward, and then he's just lying there, face down in the water. Fuck's sake, says Roxy. Darryl gets the hook and pulls him to the edge, and they haul him up. When Newland opens his eyes again, Roxy's sitting on his chest. You're going to die here now, Newland, says Darryl, very calmly. This is it, mate. This is all the life you got. This is your last day. And there's nothing you can tell us that'll make it different, all right? But if we make it look like an accident, your life insurance will still pay out. To your mum, yeah? And your brother? We can do that for you. Make it look like an accident, not a suicide. All right? Newland coughs up a lungful of murky water. You got my mum killed, Newland, says Roxy. That's strike one. And you've made me sit in your shitty water. That's strike two. If we get to strike three, there will be pain you just can't believe. I only want to know one thing from you. He's listening to her now. What did Primrose give you, Newland, to tip him off about my mum? What would have made you bring the monks down on you? What seemed worth that to you, Newland? He blinks at them, first at her, then at Darryl, like they're having a laugh with him. She holds his face in her hand and sends a pickaxe of pain along his jaw. He screams. Just tell me, Newland, she says. He's panting. You know, don't you? He says. You're kidding me. She brings her hand close to his face. No, he says. No. You know what happened, you fucking bitch. It was your dad. It was never Primrose who paid me. It was Bernie. Bernie Monk told me to do it. I only ever worked for Bernie. Only ever did jobs for Bernie. It was Bernie who told me that I should pretend to sell Primrose information. Tell him when to find your mum alone. You was never supposed to see it. Bernie wanted your mum dead and I don't ask questions. I helped him out. It was fucking Bernie! Your dad! Bernie! He keeps on muttering the name, like it's the secret that will make her set him free. They don't get much more from him. He knew Roxy's mum was Bernie's woman, yeah, of course he did. They told him that she'd cheated on Bernie, and that was enough to get her killed. Well, it would be. When they're finished, they tip him back in the pool, and she lights it up, just the once. It'll look like he had a heart attack, fell in, shat himself, and drowned. So they kept their promise. They change their clothes and take the rental car back to the airport. They haven't even left a hole in the fence. On the plane, Roxy says, "What now?" And Darryl says, "What you want, Rox?" She sits there for a bit, feeling the power in her, crystalline and complete. It felt like something. Killing Newland. To see him go rigid and then stop. She thinks about what Eve said to her, that she knew Roxy was coming, that she's seen her destiny, that she's the one who's going to bring in the new world, that the power will be in her hands to change everything. She feels the power in her fingertips, as if she could punch a hole right through the world. "I want justice," she says, "and then I want everything. You want to stand with me, or you want to stand against me?" Bernie's in his office, looking through his books when they get there. He looks old to her. He hasn't shaved properly. There's tufts sticking out of his neck and his chin. There's a smell on him these days, too. Smells like hard cheese. She never thought before that he's old. They're his youngest ones. Ricky's 35. He knew they were coming. Barbara must have told him she'd given Roxy the notebooks. He smiles when they walk in the door. Daryl's behind her, holding a loaded gun. "You've got to understand, Rox," says Bernie. "I loved your mum. She never loved me. I don't think so. She was just using me for what she could get." "That why you killed her?" He inhales through his nose, like it surprises him to hear it. Even so. "I'm not gonna beg," he says. He's looking at Roxy's hands, at her fingers. "I know how this goes, and I'll take it. But you've got to understand it wasn't personal. It was business." "It was family, Dad," says Daryl very softly. "Family's always personal." "That's the truth," he says. "But she got Al and Big Mick caught," he says. "The Romanians paid her, and she told where they'd be. I cried when they told me it was her love I did, but I couldn't let it stand, could I? There's no one. You've got to understand. There's no one I could have let do that to me." Roxy's made that kind of calculation herself, more than once. "You weren't supposed to see it, love." "Aren't you ashamed, Dad?" says Roxy. He sticks his chin out, puts his tongue between his teeth and his bottom lip. "I'm sorry it happened. I'm sorry that's the way it went. I didn't mean for you to see it, and I've always looked after you. You're my girl." He pauses. "Your mum hurt me more than I could tell you." He breathes out through his nose again, heavy like a bull. "It's a bloody Greek tragedy, love. Even if I'd known all this was going to happen, I'd still have done it. I can't deny it, and if you're going to kill me, there's some justice to it, love." He sits there, waiting for it, calm as anything. He must have thought about this 100 times, wondering who'd get him in the end. A friend or an enemy, or a growing mass in the centre of the stomach, or if he'd make it all the way to a good old age. He must have thought before that it might be her, and that's why he's so calm with it now. She knows how this goes. If she kills him, it'll never be over. That's how it went with Primrose, how they ended up in a blood feud with him. If she keeps on killing anyone who pisses her off, someone will come for her in the end. "You know what's justice, Dad?" she says. "I want you to fuck off, and I want you to tell all of them that you're handing the business over to me. We're not having any bloody battles. No one else is coming up to take it from me. No one revenging you. No Greek tragedy. We're doing it peaceful. You're retiring. I'll protect you, and you'll fuck off. We'll fix you up with a safe place. Go somewhere with a beach." Bernie nods. "You always was a clever girl," he says. Jocelyn. They've had death threats and bomb scares at the North Star camp before, but never a real attack. Not till tonight. Jocelyn's on night watch. There are 5 of them, scanning the perimeter with binoculars. If you do your extras and you sleep over and you agree that you'll work for them for 2 years after you leave college, they'll pay your tuition. Pretty sweet deal. Margot could have paid for Jocelyn's college, but it looks good that she's doing it the same way the other girls do. Maddie's skein has come in sure and strong, with none of Jocelyn's problems. She's only 15, and she's already talking about joining the elite cadets. 2 military daughters. That's how you run for president. Jocelyn's half dozing at her watch station when the alarm sounds in the booth. Alarms have sounded before. It's been a fox or a coyote or sometimes a couple of drunk teenagers trying to climb over the fence on a dare. Jocelyn was once scared out of her wits by a shrieking in the trash at the back of the mess hall, only for two enormous raccoons to dive out of the metal bins, biting and running at each other. The others had laughed at her for her fright at that, as they laugh at her quite often. At first, there was Ryan, and that was exciting and fun and intense, and because his skein was just their secret, it made everything special. But then it got out somehow. Photos on a long lens, reporters at the door again, and the other girls at camp read about it. And then there were little whispered giggly conversations that fell silent when she walked into the room. She's read articles by women who wish they couldn't do it, and men who wish they could, and everything seems so confusing, and all she really wants is to be normal. She broke up with Ryan, and he cried, and she found her face was dry like there was a stopper inside holding it all in. Her mom took her to a doctor privately, and they gave her something to feel more normal. And she does, in a way. She and 3 of the other girls on watch take up their nightsticks, long batons with sharp, whippy metal strands at the end, and go out into the night, expecting to find some local wildlife biting at the fence. Except, when they get there are 3 men, each carrying a baseball bat, their faces greased up with black. They're at the generator. One of them has a huge pair of bolt cutters. It's a terrorist incursion. Things happen quickly. Dakota, the eldest of them, whispers to Hayden, one of the youngest, to run for the North Star Guards. The others stay in a tight formation, bodies close together. There have been men at other camps with knives, guns, even grenades and homemade bombs. Dakota shouts out, "Put down your weapons!" The men's eyes are narrow and unreadable. They've come here to do something bad. Dakota swings her flashlight. "All right, fellas," she says. "You've had your fun, but we caught you. Put them down." One of them throws something. A gas grenade, smoke billowing out. The second uses his bolt cutters on an exposed tube in the generator. There's a bang. All the lights go out in the center of the camp. There's nothing now but the black sky, the stars, and these men who have come here to kill them. Jocelyn points her flashlight wildly around. One of the men is fighting with Dakota and Samara, swinging his baseball bat, shouting a tattered cry. The bat connects with Samara's head. There's blood. Fuck, there's blood. They've been trained. The girls are all trained. This isn't supposed to happen. Even with their power, can this still happen? Tegan's on him like a wolf, the power in her hands taking out one of his knees, but he kicks her square in the face, and what's that glinting under his jacket? What has he got? What the fuck has he got? Jocelyn runs for him. She'll hold him down and get whatever it is away from him. But as she goes, a hand grabs for her ankle, and she topples forward, face into the sandy earth. She scrambles onto all fours, crawling towards the flashlight, but before she can get there, it's picked up, pointed at her. She waits for the blow, but it's Dakota holding the light. Dakota with a bruise across her cheek, and Tegan next to her, and one of the men kneeling on the ground at Tegan's feet. She thinks it was the one she was fighting with. His balaclava's off, and he's young. Younger than she thought, maybe only a year or 2 older than her. His lip is cut, and there's a fern-like scar unfurling across his jaw. "Got him," says Dakota. "Fuck you," says the man. "We stand for freedom." Tegan lifts up his head by his hair and jolts him again, just under the ear, a painful place. "Who sent you here?" says Dakota, but he doesn't answer. "Joss," says Dakota, "show him we mean business." Jocelyn doesn't know where the other 2 women have gone. "Shouldn't we wait," she says, "for backup?" Dakota says, "Goddamn bzzzt, you can't do it, can you?" The boy's cowering on the floor. She doesn't need to do it. No one needs to do it now. Tegan says, "Has he got a skein? She wants to fuck him." The others laugh. "Yeah," they mutter, "that's what she likes. Weird men, deformed men, disgusting, strange, repulsive men. That's what she likes. If she fucking cries in front of them, they'll never forget it. Anyway, she's not what they think. She didn't even like it so much with Ryan, she didn't. She thought about it since they broke up, and she thinks the other girls are right. It's better with a man who can't do it. It's more normal anyway. She's been with a couple of other guys since, guys who liked it when she gave them a jolt, and even asked her for it in quiet voices close up to her ear, saying, "Please." It's better like that. And she wishes they'd just forget that Ryan ever existed. She's forgotten him. It was just a teenage thing, and the drugs have normalized her power more than ever. She's normal now. Completely normal. What would a normal girl do now? Dakota says, "Fuck off, Cleary, I'll do it." And Jocelyn says, "No, you fuck off!" The boy on the floor whispers, "Please," like they do. Jocelyn pushes Dakota out of the way and leans down and gives him a jolt in his head, just to teach him what he's got coming if he messes with them. She's emotional, though. Her trainers told her to watch out for that. There are surges going through her body. Hormones and electrolytes mess with everything. She can feel, as it leaves her body, that it's too much. She tries to hold it back, but it's too late. His scalp crisps under her hand. He screams. Inside his skull, liquid is cooking. Delicate parts are fusing and congealing. The lines of power are scarring him faster than thought. She can't hold it back. It's not a good way to go. She didn't mean to do it. There's a smell of burnt hair and flesh. Tegan says, "Fuck!" And there's an arc light on them suddenly. It's two of the North Star people, a man and a woman. Joss has met them before, Esther and Johnny. At last. They must have rigged up a light from a backup generator. Jocelyn's mind is working very quickly, even though her body is slow. Her hand is still on the boy's head. There's a faint wisp of smoke at her fingertips. Johnny says, "Jesus." Esther says, "Were there more?" The girl said there were 3. Dakota's still staring at the boy. Jocelyn peels her fingers off him one by one, and she doesn't think about it at all. She has the sense that if she starts to think about it, she'll tumble down into the deep, dark water. There's a black ocean waiting for her now. It will always be waiting. She takes her fingers off, not thinking about it, and she pulls her sticky palm up, not thinking about it, and the body tumbles forward, face first, into the dirt. Esther says, "Johnny, go and get a fucking medic. Now." Johnny's staring at the body, too. He makes a little laugh and says, "Medic?" Esther says, "Now, go and get the fucking medic, Johnny." He swallows. His eyes flick to Jocelyn, Tegan, Esther. When he catches Esther's eye, he nods swiftly, backs up a few paces, turns and runs out of the circle of the arc light and into the dark. Esther looks round the circle. Dakota starts to say, "What happened was—" But Esther shakes her head. "Let's see," she says. She kneels down by the body, flips it over with one hand, rummages in his coat. They can't quite see what's happening. She finds some gum, a handful of flyers for a men's protest group. And then there's a familiar, heavy, metallic chink. Esther reaches behind him, and there in her palm is a gun. Thick and snub-nosed, military issue. "He pulled a gun on you," says Esther. Jocelyn frowns. She understands, but she can't stop herself from saying the words. "No, he didn't. He was—" She stops, as her mouth catches up to her brain. Esther speaks in a very calm and easy tone. There's a smile in her voice, like she's talking Joss through an equipment maintenance drill. First turn off the power, then apply the lubricating fluid, then adjust the belt using the tightening screw. Simple. One thing, then the next. 1, 2, 3. This is how it has to go. She says, "You saw that he had a gun in the side pocket of his coat, and he was reaching for it. He had already committed an act of violence against us. You perceived a clear and present danger. He reached for the gun, and you used proportionate force to stop him." Esther uncurls the boy's fingers and wraps them around the holster of the pistol, It's simpler to understand this way. He was holding his gun. She says he was about to fire it. She looks around the circle of young women, meeting each of their eyes in turn. Deacon says, "Yeah, that's what happened. I saw him reach for his gun." Jocelyn looks at the gun, clasped in the cooling fingers. Some of the North Star people carry their own unregistered sidearms. Her mom had to get the New York Times to pull a piece about it, on the grounds that it would threaten Homeland Security. Maybe he had that gun in his back pocket. Maybe he was going to turn it on them. But if they had guns, why were they using bats? Esther clasps her hand on Jocelyn's shoulder. "You're a hero, soldier," she says. "Yes," says Jocelyn. It gets easier to tell the story the more she does it. She starts to see it very clearly in her mind's eye, so that by the time she's talking about it on national TV, she thinks she half remembers it anyway. Hadn't she seen something metal in one of their pockets? Couldn't it have been a gun? Maybe that's why she let off her blast. Yes, she probably did know. She smiles on the television news. "No," she says, "I don't feel like a hero. Anyone would have done the same." "Oh, come on," says Kristen. "I couldn't have done it. Could you, Matt?" Matt laughs and says, "I couldn't even have watched." He's very attractive, a good 10 years younger than Kristen. The network had found him, just trying something out. "While we're at it, Kristen, why don't you wear your glasses on screen now? It'll give you gravitas. We're going to see how the numbers play out this way. We're sending it for a run around the park, okay?" "Well, your mom must be very proud, Jocelyn." She is proud. She knows part of the story, but not the whole thing. It's given her leverage with the Defense Department in rolling out the North Star training camp scheme for girls across all 50 states. It's a well-run program, with good links to colleges, and they're able to charge the Army a bounty for every girl they send their way who can bypass basic and go straight into active duty. The Army is fond of Margot Cleary. "And with all that's going on in the news," says Matt, "this war in Eastern Europe, what is that about? First the South Moldovans are winning, now it's the North Moldovans, and the Saudis are involved somehow?" He shrugs helplessly. "It's great to know that we have young women like you ready to defend the country." "Oh, yes," says Jocelyn, just like she practiced. "I would never have been able to do it at all without the training I received at North Star Camp." Kristen squeezes her knee. "Will you stick around, Jocelyn? We're going to be tasting some great cinnamon recipes for fall after the break." "Of course." Matt smiles into the camera. "I know I feel safer with you around. And now, the weather on the ones."
Audio Guide for the Museum of Post-Cataclysm Artifacts. This case contains 2 precious objects from pre-cataclysm time which have been welded to cataclysm-era technology. The first is a metal figure of a victorious woman standing with one hand on her hip. The other arm is wreathed in bangles from elbow to armpit. She is welded to a metal base. The display text for this female figure reads, "Statue of the Priestess Queen, found in a treasure trove in Lahore." The statue itself is substantially older than the base, which is made from repurposed cataclysm-era technology. Though it is much eroded, analysis of the base has revealed that it was originally marked with the bitten fruit motif. Objects marked with this motif are found across the cataclysm-era world, and their use is much debated. The uniformity of the motif suggests that it is a religious symbol, but it may also have been a glyph indicating that the object should be used for serving food. The different sizes may have been used for different meals. The bitten fruit artifact is, as is common, constructed partially of metal and partially of glass. Unusually for objects of this type, the glass is unbroken, giving it high value in the post-cataclysm years. It's speculated that the bitten fruit artifact was given as a tribute to the cult of the priestess queen and used to increase the majesty of her statue. The 2 objects were welded together around 2,500 years ago. Audio Guide for the Museum of Post-Cataclysm Artifacts. The second object in this case is a stone head, neck, and one arm of a male figure. He is bearded, and his ears are pierced. His chest is decorated with pieces of glass. The display text reads, "Statue of Serving Boy, found in the same hoard as the priestess queen." From the careful grooming and sensuous features, it has been speculated that this statue depicts a sex worker. The statue is decorated with Cataclysm-era glass, whose composition is similar to that of the base of Priestess Queen. It almost certainly came from a broken bitten fruit artifact. The glass was probably added to this statue at the same time that the base was added to Priestess Queen.
One year.
Invitation. The President and her government request the pleasure of the company of Senator Margot Cleary, Ms. Roxanne Monk, Mother Eve, and Mr. Tunde Edo at a reception and dinner on Wednesday evening, June the 15th, at 7 o'clock.
Margot. Can you comment on why you're here, Senator Cleary? President Moskalev has been ousted in a military coup from the country of which he was the leader, chosen by a democratic process, Tunde. This is the kind of thing which the government of the United States takes very seriously. And may I say how delighted I am that you're engaging the younger generation in this sort of important geopolitical issue. It's the younger generation who'll have to live in the world you're building, Senator. You're right. And that's why I'm so thrilled that my daughter, Jocelyn, is visiting the country with me as part of the United Nations delegation. Can you comment on the recent defeat of the forces of the Republic of Besepara by the troops of North Moldova? It's a party, son, not a defense strategy meeting. You know, Senator Cleary, you sit on, is it 5 strategic committees now? He counts them off on his fingers. Defense, foreign relations, homeland security, budget, and intelligence. You're quite the powerhouse to be sent to a party. You've done your homework. I have, Mum. The North Moldovans are funded by the House of Saud in exile, aren't they? Is this war with Besapara a proving ground for an attempt to retake Saudi Arabia? The Saudi Arabian government was democratically elected by their people. The United States government supports democracy around the world and peaceful regime change. Is the United States government here to secure the oil pipeline? There is no oil in Moldova or Besapara, Tunde. But another regime change in Saudi Arabia might affect your oil supply. Don't you think? That can't be a concern when we're talking about the freedom of a democracy. He almost laughs. A little smirk peels across his face and disappears. Okay, says Tunde. Fine. The United States would rather promote democracy than oil. Okay. And what message does your attending this party tonight send about domestic terrorism back home? Let me be clear, says Margot, staring straight into Tunde's camera with a clear, level gaze. The United States government is not afraid of domestic terrorists or the people who fund them. And by the people who fund them, you mean King Awadi Atif of Saudi Arabia? That's all I have to say on this. And any comment on why you've been sent here, Senator? You in particular, with your connections to the North Star training camps for young women. Is that why you were chosen to come here? Margot does a little chuckle that seems entirely sincere. I'm just a little fish, Tunde. A minnow, really. I came because I was invited. And now I just want to enjoy the party. And I'm sure you do, too. She turns away, walks a few paces to the right, waits until she hears the snap of his camera turning off. Don't start coming after me, son, she says out of the corner of her mouth. I'm your friend here. Tunde notices the word son. Says nothing. Holds it close to his chest. He's glad he left the audio recording running. even though the video is off. I could have pushed you twice as hard, he says, Mom. Margot squints at him. I like you, Tunde, she says. You did good work on that interview with Urban Docs. Those nuke threats really got Congress to sit up and take notice. Voted us the money we need to defend the country. You still in touch with his people? Sometimes. You hear they've got anything big coming down the pipe, you come and tell me, all right? We'll make it worth your while. There's money in it now. A lot of money. You might make a great press consultant with our training camps. Uh-huh, says Tunde. I'll let you know. Be sure you do. She smiles reassuringly. At least, that's what she intends. She has the feeling that once it reaches her lips, it might have come out more as a leer. The problem is that these fucking reporters are so attractive. She's seen Tunde's videos before. Maddie is a huge fan, and he's actually making a difference with the 18 to 35 voting demographic. It's amazing how, amongst all the talk about his relaxed and accessible style, no one mentions that Olatunde Edo's videos have become such a hit because he's handsome as hell. He's half naked in some of them, reporting from the beach in just Speedos. And how's she supposed to take him seriously now when she's seen his broad shoulders and narrow waist and the rolling landscape of his obliques and delts, glutes and pecs of his firm... Shit. She really needs to get laid. Christ, okay. There are a few young guys among the staff on this trip. She'll buy one of them a drink after the party because this can't be happening in her mind every time she's confronted with a handsome reporter. She grabs a schnapps from a passing tray, downs it. An aide catches her eye across the room, points to her wristwatch. We're off to the races. You've gotta admit, she whispers to Francis, her aide, as they climb the marble stairs. They know how to pick a castle. The place looks like it's been transported brick by brick from Disney. Gilt furniture, 7 pointed spires, each a different shape and size, some fluted, some smooth, some tipped with gold. Pine forest in the foreground, mountains in the distance. Yeah, you've got history and culture. Yeah, you're not no one. Fine. Tatiana Moskalev is, no kidding, sitting on an actual throne when Margot walks in. A huge gold thing, with lions' heads on the arms and a red velvet cushion. Margot manages not to smile. The president of Besapara is wearing an enormous white fur coat with a gold dress underneath. She has a ring on each finger and 2 on each thumb. It's like she's learned what a president ought to look like from watching too many mafia movies. Maybe that's what she did. The door closes behind Margot. They're alone together. President Moskalev, says Margot, an honor to meet you. Senator Cleary, says Tatiana, the honor is mine. The snake meets the tiger, Margot thinks. The jackal greets the scorpion. Please, says Tatiana, take a glass of our ice wine, the finest in Europe, the product of our Besaparan vineyards. Margot sips it, wondering how likely it is to be poisoned. She puts the odds at no more than 3%. It'd look very bad for them if she died here. The wine is excellent, says Margot. I would have expected no less. Tatiana smiles a thin and distant smile. You like Besapara? She says. You have enjoyed the tours, music, dancing, local cheese. Margot had sat through a 3-hour demonstration and talk on local cheese-making practices that morning. 3 hours. On cheese. Oh, your country is delightful, Madam President. Such old-world charm, combined with such focus and determination to move into the future together. Yes, Tatiana smiles thinly again. We think we are maybe the most forward-thinking country in the world, you know. Ah, yes. I am looking forward to the visit to your Science Technology Park tomorrow. Tatiana shakes her head. Culturally, she says, socially. We are the only country in the world to really understand what this change means, to understand it as a blessing, an invitation to... She shakes her head for a moment, as if to clear a kind of fog. An invitation to a new way of living. Margot says nothing, and sips her wine again, making an appreciative face. I like America, says Tatiana. My late husband, Victor, liked USSR, but I like America. Land of freedom, land of opportunity, good music, better than Russian music. She starts to sing the lyrics to a pop song Maddie's been playing around the house incessantly. When we drive you so fast, in your car, oh boom boom. Her voice is pleasant. Margot remembers reading somewhere that Tatiana had ambitions to be a pop star, once upon a time. You want us to get them to come play here? They tour. We can fix it up. Tatiana says, I think you know what I want. I think you know. Senator Cleary, you are not a stupid woman. Margot smiles. I may not be stupid, but I'm not a mind reader, President Moskalev. All we want, says Tatiana, is American dream, right here in Bessapara. We are a new nation, lucky little state bordered by a terrible enemy. We want to live freely, to pursue our own way of life. We want opportunity. That's all. Margot nods. That's what everyone wants, Madam President. Democracy for all is America's fondest wish for the world. Tatiana's lips turn faintly upward. Then you will help us against the North. Margot chews her top lip for a moment. This is a tricky point. She'd known it was coming. I've had conversations with the President. While we support your independence, as it is the will of your people, we can't be seen to interfere in a war between North Moldova and Bessapara. You and I are more subtle than this, Senator Cleary. We can offer humanitarian aid and peacekeeping forces. You can vote against any action against us in the UN Security Council. Margot frowns. But there are no actions against you in the UN Security Council. Tatiana places her glass very deliberately on the table in front of her. Senator Cleary, my country has been betrayed by some of its men. We know this. We were defeated in the recent Battle of the Dniester because the North knew where our troops would be. Men from Bessapara have sold information to our enemies in the North. Some of them have been found. Some of them have confessed. We need to take action. That is your prerogative, of course. You will not interfere in this action. You will support whatever we do. Margot gives a little chuckle. I'm not sure I can promise anything that sweeping, Madam President. Tatiana turns around, leans back against the window pane. She is silhouetted against the brightly lit Disney castle behind her. You work with North Star, don't you? Private military? You are a shareholder, in fact. I like North Star. Teaching girls to be warriors, very good. We need it more. Well, this wasn't what Margot was expecting, but it's intriguing. I don't quite see how these things are linked, Madam President, she says, although she's beginning to have a shrewd idea. North Star wants the UN mandate to send its own North Star-trained female troops into Saudi Arabia. The government in Saudi Arabia is crumbling. The state is unstable. If the UN approves the deployment, I think it'll be good news for the world, yes. Securing the supply of energy, helping the government through a difficult period of transition. It would be easier to make the case, says Tatiana, if another government had already successfully deployed North Star forces. Tatiana pauses, pours herself another glass of the ice wine, pours one for Margot, too. They both know where this is going. Their eyes meet. Margot is smiling. You want to employ North Star girls yourself. Here's my private army, here and on the border. It's worth a lot of money. Even more if they win the war with the North and seize the Saudi assets. Acting as a private army here would take North Star exactly where they want to go. The board would be very happy to continue their association with Margot Cleary until the end of time, if she could pull this off. And in exchange you want... We are going to alter our laws a little during this time of trouble to prevent more traitors giving away our secrets to the North. We want you to stand by us. We have no wish to interfere in the affairs of a sovereign nation, says Margot. Cultural differences must be respected. I know the President will trust my judgment on this. Good, says Tatiana, and makes a slow, green-eyed blink. Then, we understand each other. She pauses. We don't have to ask ourselves what the North would do if they won, Senator Cleary. We've already seen what they do. We all remember what Saudi Arabia was. We are both on the right side here. She raises her glass. Margot tips hers slowly until it just touches Tatiana's glass with a gentle chink. It's a great day for America. A great day for the world. The rest of the party is precisely as dull as Margot had expected. She shakes hands with foreign dignitaries and religious leaders and people she suspects to be criminals and arms dealers. She mouths the same lines over and over again about the United States' deep sympathy with victims of injustice and tyranny and their wish to see a peaceful resolution to the situation here in this troubled region. There's some kerfuffle at the reception just after Tatiana makes her entrance, but Margot doesn't see it. She stays until 10:30 p.m., the officially designated time that is neither too early nor too late to leave a significant party. On her way down to the diplomatic car, she bumps into the reporter Tunde again. "Excuse me," he says, dropping something onto the floor and immediately retrieving it, too fast for her to see. Excuse me. I'm sorry, I'm in a hurry." She laughs. She's had a good night. She's already calculating the kind of bonus she'll get from North Star if this all works out, and thinking about super PAC contributions for the next election cycle. "Why hurry?" she says. "There's no need to rush away. Want a ride?" She gestures to the car, its door open, its buttery leather interior inviting. He conceals his momentary look of panic with a smile, but not quite quickly enough. "Another time," he says. His loss. Later, in the hotel, she buys a couple of drinks for one of the junior guys from the American Embassy in the Ukraine. He's attentive. Well, why wouldn't he be? She's going places. She rests her hand on his firm young ass as they ride the elevator together up to her suite. Alley. The castle's chapel has been remade. The glass and gold chandelier still floats in the center of the room, the wires holding it up too thin to be seen by candlelight. All these electric miracles. The windows depicting the angels praising Our Lady have remained intact, as have the panels to St. Teresa and St. Jerome. The others, and the enameled paintings in the cupola, have been replaced and reimagined according to the new scripture. There is the Almighty speaking to the matriarch Rebecca in the form of a dove. There is the prophet Deborah proclaiming the holy word to the disbelieving people. There, although she protested, is Mother Eve, the symbolic tree behind her, receiving the message from the heavens and extending her hand filled with lightning. In the center of the cupola is the hand with the all-seeing eye at its heart. That is the symbol of God, who watches over each of us, and whose mighty hand is outstretched to both the powerful and the enslaved. There is a soldier waiting for her in the chapel, a young woman who had requested a private audience. American, pretty, with light grey eyes and freckles across her cheeks. "Are you waiting to see me?" says Mother Eve. "Yes," says Jocelyn, daughter of Senator Cleary, who sits on 5 key committees, including Defense and Budget. Mother Eve has made time for this private meeting. "It is good to meet you, daughter." She comes to sit beside her. "How can I help you?" And Jocelyn starts to cry. "My mother would kill me if she knew I was here," she says. "She'd kill me. Oh, Mother, I don't know what to do." "Have you come for guidance?" Allie had looked at the request for an audience with interest. That the senator's daughter should be here was no great surprise. That she would want to see Mother Eve in the flesh made sense. But a private audience? Allie had wondered whether she'd be a skeptic, looking to have an argument about the existence of God, but apparently not. "I'm so lost," says Jocelyn through her tears. "I don't know who I am anymore. I watch your talks and I keep waiting for her. I ask her voice to guide me and tell me what to do." Allie is quite familiar with trouble that is too deep to be spoken. She knows it happens in any house, however high. There is no place that cannot be penetrated by the kind of trouble Allie has seen in her life. She extends a hand, touches Jocelyn's knee. Jocelyn flinches a little, pulls away. Even in that momentary touch, Allie knows what Jocelyn's trouble is. She knows the touch of women and the slow, even background hum of power in the skein. Something is dark in Jocelyn that should be lit and glowing. Something is open that should be closed. Allie suppresses a shudder. "Your skein," says Mother Eve. "You are suffering." Jocelyn cannot speak above a whisper. "It's a secret. I'm not supposed to talk about it. There are drugs, but the drugs don't work as well anymore. It's getting worse. I'm not like other girls. I didn't know who else to come to. I've seen you on the internet. Please," she says, "please, heal me and make me normal. Please ask God to take the burden from me. Please let me be normal." "All I can do," says Mother Eve, "is take your hand, and we will pray together." This is a very difficult situation. No one's examined this girl, or given Allie advice about what her problem is. Skein deficiencies are very difficult to correct. Tatiana Moskalev is looking into skein transplant operations for precisely this reason. We don't know how to fix a skein that doesn't work. Jocelyn nods and puts her hand in Allie's. Mother Eve says the usual words. "Our Mother," she says, "above us and within us. You alone are the source of all goodness, all mercy, and all grace. May we learn to do your will as you express it to us daily through your works." While she speaks, Allie is feeling out the patches of darkness and light in Jocelyn's skein. It's as if the thing is occluded, gummy places where there should be flowing water. Silted up. She could clear some of the muck in the channels, here, and here. "And may our hearts be pure before you," she says, "and may you send us strength to bear the trials we face, without bitterness and without self-destruction." Jocelyn, though she has rarely prayed, prays now. As Mother Eve lays her hands on Jocelyn's back, she prays, "Please, God, open my heart." And she feels something. Allie gives a little push, more than she'd usually do, But this girl doesn't have enough sensitivity to feel what exactly she's doing, probably. Jocelyn gasps. Ali gives another 3 short, hard pushes. And there. The thing is sparkling now, thrumming like an engine. There. Jocelyn says, "Oh God, I can feel it!" Her skein is humming steadily, evenly. She can feel now that thing that the other girls say they've felt. The gentle filling sensation as each cell in her skein pumps ions across membranes and the electric potential increases. She can feel that she's working properly. For the first time ever. She is too shocked to cry. She says, "I can feel it. It's working." Mother Eve says, "Praise be to God." "But how did you do that?" Mother Eve shakes her head. "Not my will, but hers be done." They breathe in and out, in unison, once, twice, 3 times. Jocelyn says, "What shall I do now? She laughs. "I'm shipping out tomorrow. United Nations Observation Force duty in the South." She's not supposed to say that, but she can't help herself. She couldn't keep a secret now in this room. "My mom sent me there because it looks good, but I won't really be in danger. No chance of getting into trouble," she says. The voice says, "Maybe she should get into trouble." Mother Eve says, "You need have no fear now." Jocelyn nods again. "Yes," she says. "Thank you. Thank you." Mother Eve kisses her on the crown of the head and gives her the blessing in the name of the Great Mother, and she goes down to the party. Tatiana is followed into the room by 2 well-built men in fitted clothing. Black t-shirts so tight you can see the outline of their nipples, skinny trousers with noticeable crotch bulges. When she sits in a high-backed chair on a dais, they sit beside her, on somewhat lower stools. The trappings of power, the rewards of success. She rises to greet Mother Eve with a kiss on each cheek. "Praise be to Our Lady," says Tatiana. "Glory in the highest," says Mother Eve, without a trace of Ali's sardonic smile. "They've found 12 more traitors, captured in a raid on the north," mutters Tatiana. "With God's help, they will all be found," says Mother Eve. There are infinite numbers of people to meet. Ambassadors and local dignitaries, business owners and leaders of new movements. This party, coming so soon after their defeat in the Battle of the Dniester, is meant to shore up support for Tatiana both at home and abroad. And the presence of Mother Eve is part of that. Tatiana gives a speech about the heart-rending cruelty done by the regimes of the North and the freedom she and her people are fighting for. They listen to the stories of women who join together in small bands to seek Our Lady's vengeance on those who have escaped human justice. Tatiana is almost moved to tears. She asks one of the smartly dressed young men standing behind her to bring drinks for these brave women. He nods, backs away, almost tripping over his feet, and heads upstairs. While they wait, Tatiana tells one of her long-winded jokes. It is about a woman who wishes she could combine her favorite 3 men into one man, and then a good witch comes to visit her. The young blonde man bounds in front of her with the bottle. "Was it this one, madam?" Tatiana looks at him. She tips her head to one side. The young man swallows. "I'm sorry," he says. "Did I tell you to speak?" she says. He drops his eyes to the floor. "Just like a man," she says. "Does not know how to be silent. Think we always want to hear what he has to say. Always talking, 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 interrupting his betters." The young man looks like he's about to say something, but thinks better of it. Needs to be taught some manners, says one of the women standing behind Ali, one of those who run the group seeking justice for old crimes. Tatiana plucks the bottle of brandy from the young man's hands, holds it in front of his face. The liquid sloshing inside is dark amber, oily like caramel. This bottle is worth more than you, she says. A glass of this is worth more than you. She holds the bottle in one hand by the neck, swirls the liquid around, once, twice, 3 times. She drops it onto the floor. The glass smashes. The liquid starts to soak into the wood, staining it darker. The smell is strong and sweet. Lick it up, she says. The man looks down at the shattered bottle. There are glass fragments among the brandy. He looks round at the watching faces. He kneels down and begins to tongue the floor, delicately, working his way around the pieces of glass. One of the older women calls out, "Get your face into it!" Ali watches in silence. The voice says, "What the fuck?" Ali says in her heart, "She is actually crazy? Should I say something?" The voice says, "Anything you say will diminish your power here." Ali says, "So, what then? What is any of my power worth if I can't use it here?" The voice says, "Remember what Tatiana says. We don't have to ask what they'd do if they were in control. We've seen it already. It's worse than this." Ali clears her throat. The young man's mouth has blood at the lip. Tatiana starts to laugh. "Oh, for God's sake," she says, "get a broom and mop it up. You're repulsive." The young man scrabbles to his feet. The crystal glasses are filled with champagne again. The music can once more be heard. "Can you believe he did it?" says Tatiana, after he's run off to fetch a broom. Roxy. It's a boring fucking party is what it is. And it's not that she doesn't like Tatiana, she does. Tatiana's let them get on with business over the past year, since she took over from Bernie. And anyone who lets you get on with business is all right by Roxy. Still, you'd think she could throw a better party than this. Someone had told her that Tatiana Moskalev went around this castle with her own bloomin' pet leopard on a chain. That's the disappointment Roxy can't really get over. Plenty of nice glasses, fine, plenty of gold chairs, all right, no bloomin' leopard anywhere. The president seems only to have the dimmest understanding of who Roxy is at all. She goes and does the line-up to shake hands. The woman with the heavy mascara and the green and gold eyes says hello, and you are one of the finest business people who is making this country the greatest on earth and the most free, without a shadow of recognition crossing her face. Roxy thinks she's drunk. She wants to go, "Don't you know? I'm the woman shifting 500 kilos across your borders every day. Every day. I'm the one who's got you in trouble with the UN, although we all know they won't do a fucking thing. Just send some more observing forces or whatnot. Don't you know?" Roxy necks some more of the champagne. She has a look out of the windows at the darkening mountains. She doesn't even hear Mother Eve approaching her until the woman is at her elbow. Eve's spooky like that. Tiny and wiry, and so quiet she could walk across a room and stick a knife between your ribs before you even knew it. Mother Eve says, "The defeat in the north has made Tatiana unpredictable." "Yeah, it's made it bloody unpredictable for me, too. I can tell you. Suppliers are nervy as fuck. 5 of my drivers have quit. They're all saying the war's gonna push south." "Do you remember what we did at the convent? With the waterfall?" Roxy smiles and gives a little laugh. That's a good memory. Simpler, happier times. "That's teamwork," she says. "I think we could do it again," says Mother Eve. "On a larger scale." "How'd you mean?" "My influence? your undeniable strength. I've always felt that there were great things ahead of you, Roxanne. Am I really pissed? Says Roxy. Or are you making even less sense than usual? We can't talk here. Mother Eve lowers her voice to a whisper. But I think that Tatiana Moskalev will soon have outlived her usefulness. To the Holy Mother. Oh. Oh. You kidding? Mother Eve shakes her head minutely. She's unstable. I think in a few months' time the country will be ready for a new leadership. And the people here trust me. If I were to say that you are the right woman for the job... Roxy almost hoots with laughter at that. Me? You've met me, ain't you, Evie? Stranger things have happened, says Mother Eve. You're already a leader of a great multitude. Come and see me tomorrow. We'll talk it through. It's your funeral, says Roxy. She doesn't stay long after that. Just long enough to be seen to be having a good time and press the flesh of a couple of Tatiana's other disreputable cronies. She's taken with what Mother Eve said. It's a nice thought. A very nice thought. She does like this country. She stays out of the way of the reporters circling the room. You can always tell a fucking reporter from the hungry look on their faces, even though there's one she's seen on the internet who she fancies, like she could lick his flesh straight off his bones. There's always more blokes where he came from. They're 10 a penny. Especially if she were president. She mutters it under her breath. President Monk. And then laughs at herself for it. Still, good work. In any case, she can't think about it too hard tonight. She's got business to do this evening. Non-party, non-diplomatic, non-pressing the flesh business. One of them UN soldiers or special representatives or whatever wants to meet up with her somewhere quiet so they can work out how to circumvent the blockade in the north and keep product moving. Darryl set it up. He's been doing operations here for months, keeping his head down like a good boy, making contacts, keeping the factory running smoothly even during the war. Sometimes a bloke is better at that than a woman, less threatening. They're better at diplomacy. Still, to finish the deal, it has to be Roxy herself. The roads are winding and dark. The headlights are the only pools of light in the black world. No streetlights here, not even a little village with lit windows. Bloody hell, it's only just gone 11. You'd think it was 4 o'clock in the morning. It's more than 90 minutes out of the city, but Darryl sent her good instructions. She finds the turn-off easily enough, drives down an unlit track, parks the car in front of another one of these spiky castles. All the windows are dark. No sign of life. She looks at the message Darryl sent her. Green painted door will be open. She makes a spark from her own palm to light her way. And there's the green door, paint flaking off, at the side of the stable block. She can smell formaldehyde and antiseptic. Another corridor, and there's a metal door with a round handle. Light is seeping in around the frame. Right. This is it. She'll bloody tell them next time not to have a fucking meeting somewhere unlit in the middle of nowhere. She could have tripped over and broken her neck. She turns the handle. And there's something weird. Just enough to put a frown between her eyes. She can taste blood in the air. Blood and chemicals, and there's a feeling like... She tries to pin it down. It's a feeling like there's been a fight. Like there's always just been a fight. She opens the door. There's a room lined with plastic, and there are tables and medical equipment, and she's thinking that someone didn't tell Darryl the whole story, and she has just enough time to be afraid when someone grabs her arms and someone else pulls a sack over her head. She gets off a huge blast. She knows she's hurt someone badly, could feel them crumble, and she hears the scream. And she's ready for another go. She's wheeling round and trying to get the bag off her head, and she's spinning and letting off jolts wildly into the air. She shouts, "Don't you fucking touch me!" and pulls at the thing on her head. And blood and iron bloom at the back of her skull, because someone's hit her as hard as she's ever been hit. And her last thought is, a leopard as a pet, as she goes down into night. She knows, even in her half-sleep, that they're cutting her. She's strong. She's always been strong. She's always been a fighter, and she's wrestling with the sleep like a heavy, sodden blanket. She keeps dreaming that her fists are clenched, and that she's trying to open them, and she knows that if she could only make her hands move in the real world, she would wake up, and then she would bring down such blood upon them. She would make the pain fall from the sky. She would open up a hole in the heavens and tumble the fires onto the earth. Something bad is happening to her. Something worse than she can imagine. Wake up, you fucker! Wake the fuck up now! She surfaces. She's strapped down. She can see metal above her, can feel metal under her fingertips, and she thinks, stupid fuckers. She's gonna set the whole bed humming because no fucker's coming near her. But she can't. She goes for it, and her accustomed tool is not in its place. A voice, very far away, says, "It's working." But it's not working. That's the whole point. It is definitely not working. She tries to send a little echo along her collarbone. Her power's there. It's weak, struggling, but it's there. She's never felt so grateful to her own body. Another voice. She recognizes it, but where? Where? Whose is that voice? Has she kept a leopard as a pet? What is going on? Stupid fucking leopard padding through her dreams. Fuck off, you're not real. She's trying to break through. Watch her. She's strong. Someone laughs. Someone says, "With what we've given her." "I haven't come all this way," says the voice she knows. "I didn't sort this all out to have you fuck it up. She's stronger than any of the others you've ever taken it from. Watch her." "Fine. Mind out of the way." Someone comes near her again. They're going to hurt her, and she can't let them do that. She talks to her own skein, saying, "You and me, mate, we're on the same side. You need to give me just a little bit more. The last little bit. I know you've got it. Come on. This is our life we're talking about." A hand touches her right hand. "Fuck!" someone shouts, and falls and breathes heavily. She's done it. She can feel it now, coursing more evenly through her, not like she'd been drained, like there'd been a block somewhere, and now it's clearing like debris in a stream. Oh, she is going to make them pay for this. Up the dose! Up the dose! We can't give her any more. We'll damage the skein. Look at her. Fucking do it now, or I'll do it myself. She's building up a great charge now. She's gonna bring this ceiling down on them. Just look at what she's doing! Whose is that voice? It's on the tip of her tongue. Once she's out of these restraints, she'll turn around and see, and somewhere in her heart she already knows who and what she'll see. There's a long, elongated mechanical beep. "Red zone," says someone. "Automatic warning. We've given her too much. Keep it coming." As suddenly as the power had built up in her, it went. Like someone had flipped a switch. She wants to scream. She can't make that come either. She goes down for a moment into the black mud, and when she fights her way back up again, they're cutting into her so carefully, it feels like a compliment. She's numbed, and it doesn't hurt, but she can feel the knife going in, along her collarbone. And then they touch her skein. Even through the numbness and paralysis and dreamy half-sleep, the pain sounds like a fire alarm through her body. It's clean, white pain, like they're slicing very carefully through her eyeballs, shaving off layer after layer of flesh. It's a minute of screaming before she realizes what they're doing. They have lifted up the string of striated muscle across her collarbone, and they are sawing at it, separating it strand by strand from her. Very far away, someone says, "Should she be screaming?" Someone else says, "Just get on with it." She knows those voices. She doesn't want to know them. The things you don't want to know, Roxy, those are the things that'll get you in the end. There's a twang all through her body when they cut through the final strand, on the right-hand side of her collarbone. It hurts. But the emptiness that comes after is worse. It's like she's died. But she's still too alive to notice. Her eyelids flutter as they lift the thing out of her. She knows she's seeing now, not just imagining. She sees it in front of her. The strand of meat that was the thing that made her work. It's jumping and squirming because it wants to get back inside her. She wants it there too. Her own self. There's a voice to her left. The leopard says, "Just get on with it. Sure you don't want to be under. They said you'd get better results if I could tell you whether it's working." "Yeah. Then get on with it." And even though her head is in a vice, and her neck is full of grinding gears, she turns her head so that just one eye can see what she's looking for. A single glance is enough. The man, lying prepped for the implantation operation next to her, is Darryl, and sitting beside him in a chair is her dad, Bernie. "There's the fucking leopard," says a tinny, chattering part of her brain. "Didn't I tell you there was a fucking leopard somewhere here? You tried to keep a leopard as a pet, didn't you? You fucking idiot. And you know what happens then? Teeth at the throat, blood everywhere. Got what you deserved messing with a leopard. They don't change their spots, Roxy. Or is that cheaters? Either way." "Shut up, shut 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 up!" she says to her brain. "I've got to think!" They're ignoring her now. They're working on him. They've sewed her up. Just to be neat, maybe. Or surgeons can't make themselves not sew up a wound they've made. Maybe her dad told them to. There he is. Her own dad. She should have fucking known that even not killing him wouldn't be enough. Everything's got its vengeance. A wound for a wound, a bruise for a bruise, a humiliation for a humiliation. She's trying not to cry, but she knows she is. Leaking from the eyes. She wants to mash them into the ground. The feeling's coming back into her arms and legs and fingers and toes. There's a tingling, and an emptiness, and an ache. And she's got one chance now because there's no reason at all for Darryl not to kill her. He might think she's dead already with any luck. Fucking snake in the grass, fucking shit stain on the earth, fucking Darryl! Bernie says, "How's it looking?" One of the doctors says, "It's good. Excellent tissue match." There's a whining sound from the drill as they start to bore little holes in Darryl's collarbone. It's loud. She drifts in and out of time a bit. The clock on the wall is moving faster than it should. She can feel her whole body again. Fucking hell. They left her clothes on. That's shoddy. And it's good. And she can work with it. On the next whine of the drill, she wriggles her right hand out of the soft fabric restraint. She looks around with one half-open eye. She moves, slowly. Left hand out of the restraints. Still no one notices what she's doing. They're so intent on the body of her brother. Left foot. Right foot. She reaches out to the tray next to her, grabs a couple of scalpels and some bandages. There's some kind of crisis on the table next to her. A machine starts beeping. There's an involuntary jolt from the skein they're stitching into him. Good girl, thinks Roxy. That's my girl. One of the surgeons falls to the floor. Another swears in Russian and starts giving chest compressions. With two eyes open, Roxy gauges the distance between the table where she's lying and the door. The surgeons are shouting and calling for drugs. No one's looking at Roxy. No one cares. She could die now and no one would give a shit. She might be dying now. She feels like she could be. But she's not going to die here. She tips herself off the table down hard on her knees into a crouch, and still none of them notices. She does a backward crawl towards the door, keeping low, keeping her eye on them. At the door, she finds her shoes and pulls them on with a little sob of relief. She topples out the door, hamstrings taut, body singing with adrenaline. In the courtyard, the car is gone, but limping, she runs out into the forest. Tunde. There is a man with a mouthful of glass. There is a thin, sharp, translucent sliver spearing the back of his throat, shiny with saliva and mucus, and his friend is trying to extract it with trembling fingers. He shines a light with his phone torch to see where it is exactly, and reaches in, while the man retches and tries to hold still. He has to go in for it 3 times, until he grasps it, pulls it out between thumb and forefinger. It is 2 inches long. It is stained with blood and meat, a lump of the man's throat on the end of it. The friend puts it onto a clean white napkin. Around them, the other waiters and chefs and orderlies continue with their business. Tunde photographs the 8 shards lined up on the napkin. He'd taken photographs while the obscenity was happening at the party, his camera casual and low at his hip, seeming to dangle from his hand. The waiter is just 17. This is not the first time he's seen or heard about such a thing, but the first time that he's been subject to it. No, he can't go anywhere else. He has relatives in Ukraine who might take him in if he ran, but people get shot trying to cross the border. It's a nervous time. He wipes the blood from his mouth as he speaks. He says quietly, "It's my fault. I must not speak when the president is speaking." He's crying a little now, from the shock and the shame and the fear and the humiliation and the pain. Tunde recognizes those feelings. He's known them since the first day Enuma touched him. He has written in the scribbled notes for his book, "At first, we did not speak our hurt, because it was not manly. Now we do not speak it, because we are afraid and ashamed and alone without hope. Each of us, alone. It is hard to know when the first became the second." The waiter, whose name is Peter, writes some words on a scrap of paper. He gives it to Tunde and holds his hand clasped over Tunde's fist. He looks into his eyes until Tunde thinks that the man is about to kiss him. Tunde suspects he would allow it, because each of these people needs some comfort. The waiter says, "Don't go." Tunde says, "I can stay as long as you like. Until the party is over, if you like." Peter says, "No, don't leave us. She is going to try to make the press leave the country. Please." Tunde says, "What have you heard?" Peter will only say the same thing. "Please, don't leave us. Please." "I won't," says Tunde. "I won't." He stands outside the kitchen for a smoke. His fingers are trembling as he lights a cigarette. He thought, because he'd met Tatiana Moskalev in the past, and she'd been kind to him, that he understood what was happening here. He'd been looking forward to seeing her again. Now he's glad he didn't have a chance to reintroduce himself. He pulls the paper that Peter had given him out of his pocket and looks at it. It says, in shaky block letters, "They're going to try to kill us." He gets a few shots of people leaving the party through the side door. A couple of gun runners, a bioweapons specialist. It's the Horsemen of the Apocalypse Ball. There's Roxanne Monk, getting into her car, queen of a London crime family. She sees him photographing her car, mouths, "Fuck off," at him. He files the story with CNN when he gets back in his hotel room at 3 a.m. The photographs of the man licking the brandy up from the floor, the glass splinters on the napkin, the tears on Peter's cheek. Just past 9 a.m., he wakes involuntarily, gritty-eyed, sweat prickling his back and temples. He checks his email to see what the night editors said about the piece. He's promised anything that comes out of this party to CNN first, but if they want too many cuts, he'll take it elsewhere. There's a simple 2-line email. "Sorry, Tunde. We're gonna pass on this. Great reporting. Pics excellent. Not a story we can sell in right now." Fine. Tunde sends out another 3 emails, then has a shower and orders a pot of strong coffee. When the emails start to come back, he's looking through the international news sites. Nothing much on Bessapara. No one scooped him. He reads the emails. 3 more rejections. All for similar, foot-shuffling, non-committal, "we don't think there's a story here" reasons. He's never needed a market, though. He'll just post the whole thing to his YouTube. He logs on via the hotel Wi-Fi and... there, YouTube isn't. Just a tiny takedown notice saying that this site is not available in this region. He tries a VPN. No good. Tries his cell phone data. Same deal. He thinks of Peter saying, "She's trying to make the press leave the country." If he emails the files, they'll intercept them. He burns a DVD, all the photos, all the footage, his own piece. He puts it in a padded courier envelope and pauses for a moment over the address. In the end, he writes Nina's name and details on the label. He puts a note inside saying, "Hold this till I come fetch it." He's left stuff with her before, notes for his book, journals from his travels. Safer with her than travelling with him or in an empty apartment somewhere. He'll get the American ambassador to put it in the diplomatic bag. If Tatiana Moskalev is trying to do what it looks like she might be trying to do, he doesn't want her to know yet that he's going to document it. He'll only get one chance at this story. Journalists have been expelled from countries for less than this, and he doesn't kid himself that it'll make any difference that he flirted with her once. It's that afternoon that the hotel asks for his passport, just because of the new security rules at this difficult time. Most of the other non-bureau staff are on their way out of Bessapara. There are a few war reporters in flak jackets on the Northern Front, but until the fighting starts in earnest, there's nothing much to say here, and the posturing and threats go on for more than 5 weeks. Tunde stays, even while he's receiving offers for substantial sums to go to Chile to interview the anti-pope and hear her views on Mother Eve, even while more male activism terror splinter groups say that they'll only deliver their manifesto if he comes to take them. He stays, and he interviews dozens of people in cities across the region. He learns some basic Romanian. When colleagues and friends ask what the hell he's doing, he says he's working on a book about this new nation-state, and they shrug and say, fair enough. He attends the religious services in the new churches, and sees how the old churches are being repurposed or destroyed. He sits in a circle in an underground room by candlelight and listens to a priest intoning the service as it used to be, the son and not the mother at the heart. After the service, the priest presses his body against Tunde's in a long, close hug and whispers, "Do not forget us." Tunde is told more than once that the police here no longer investigate the murder of men, that if a man is found dead, It is presumed that a vengeance gang had given him his proper reward for his deeds in the time before. "Even a young boy," a father tells him, in an overheated sitting room in a western village. "Even a boy who is only 15 now. What could he have done in the time before?" Tunde doesn't write online about any of these interviews. He knows how that would end. A knock on the door at 4 a.m. and being hustled onto the first plane out of the country. He writes as if he's a tourist, on vacation in the new nation. He posts photographs every day. There's already an angry undercurrent to the comments. "Where are the new videos, Tunde? Where are your funny reports?" Still, they'd notice if he vanished. That's important. In his 6th week in the country, Tatiana's newly appointed Minister for Justice gives a press conference. It's sparsely attended. The room is airless, the walls papered with beige and brown string. "After the recent terrorist outrages across the world, and after our country was betrayed by men who work for our enemies, we are announcing today a new legal vessel," she says. "Our people have suffered for too long now at the hands of a group which has tried to destroy us. We do not have to ask ourselves what they will do if they win. We have already seen it. We must protect ourselves against those who might betray us. Thus, we institute today this law, that each man in the country must have his passport and other official documents stamped with the name of his female guardian. Her written permission will be needed for any journey he undertakes. We know that men have their tricks, and we cannot allow them to band together. Any man who does not have a sister, mother, wife, or daughter, or other relative to register him must report to the police station, where he will be assigned a work detail and shackled to other men for the protection of the public. Any man who breaks these laws will be subject to capital punishment. This applies also to foreign journalists and other workers." Looks pass between the men in the room. There are about a dozen foreign journalists who've been here since it was a grim staging post in the business of human trafficking. The women try to look horrified, but at the same time comradely, comforting. "Don't worry," they seem to say. "This can't last long, but while it does, we'll help you out." Several of the men fold their arms protectively over their chests. "No man may take money or other possessions out of the country." The Minister for Justice turns the page. There is a long list of proclamations printed close together in small type. Men are no longer permitted to drive cars. Men are no longer permitted to own businesses. Foreign journalists and photographers must be employed by a woman. Men are no longer permitted to gather together, even in the home, in groups larger than 3, without a woman present. Men are no longer permitted to vote, because their years of violence and degradation have shown that they are not fit to rule or govern. A woman who sees a man flouting one of these laws in public is not only permitted, but required to discipline him immediately. Any woman who fails in this duty will be considered an enemy of the state, an accessory to the crime, one who attempts to undermine the peace and harmony of the nation. There are several pages of minor adjustments to these rulings, explanations of what constitutes being accompanied by a woman, and leniencies in case of extreme medical emergency, because, after all, they are not monsters. The press conference becomes more and more quiet as the list is read out. The Minister for Justice finishes reading her list and calmly sets the papers down in front of her. Her shoulders are very relaxed, her face impassive. "That is all," she says. "No questions." In the bar, Hooper from the Washington Post says, "I don't care. I'm leaving." He's said this several times already. He pours himself another whiskey and plops 3 ice cubes into it, swirls them round hard, and makes his case again. "Why the fuck should we stay somewhere that we actually can't do our jobs, when there are dozens of places we can? Something's about to break out in Iran. I'm pretty sure. I'll go there. And when something breaks out in Iran, drawled Semple of the BBC, what do you think will happen to the men? Hooper shakes his head. Not in Iran, not like this. They're not going to change their beliefs overnight. Cede everything to the women. You do remember, continues Semple, that they turned overnight when the Shah fell and the Ayatollah came to power? You do remember that it happens that quickly. There's a moment of quiet. Well, what do you suggest? Says Hooper. Give up everything, go back home and become a gardening editor? I can see you doing that. Flak jacket in the herbaceous borders. Semple shrugs. I'm staying. I'm a British citizen under the protection of Her Majesty. I'll obey the laws, within reason, and report on that. What are you expecting to report? What it's like sitting in a hotel room waiting for a woman to come and get you? Semple sticks his bottom lip out. It won't get any worse than this. At the table next to them, Tunde is listening. He also has a large whiskey, though he's not drinking it. The men are getting drunk and shouting. The women are quiet, watching the men. There is something vulnerable and desperate in the men's display. He thinks the women are looking with compassion. One says, loud enough for Tunde to be able to hear. We'll take you anywhere you want to go. Listen, we don't believe in this nonsense. You can tell us where you want to go. It'll be just the same as it's always been. Hooper clasps Semple by the sleeve, saying, You have to leave. First plane out of here and screw it all. One of the women says, He's right. What's the point of getting killed over this pisspot of a place? Tunde walks slowly to the front desk. He waits for an elderly Norwegian couple to pay their bill. There's a taxi outside loading up their bags. Like most people from wealthy nations, they're getting out of the city while they can. At last, after querying each item on the minibar receipt and the level of the local taxes, they leave. There is only one member of staff behind the desk. Grey is colonizing his hair in clumps, a chunk here and there, the rest dark and thick and tightly curled. He's perhaps in his 60s, surely a trusted staff member with years of experience. Tunde smiles, an easy, we're-in-this-together smile. Strange days, he says. The man nods. Yes, sir. You've planned what you're going to do? The man shrugs. You have family who will take you in? My daughter has a farm 3 hours west of here. I will go to her. They're going to let you travel? The man looks up. The whites of his eyes are jaundiced and streaked with red, the thin bloody lines reaching towards the pupil. He looks for a long time at Tunde, perhaps 5 or 6 seconds. If God wills it. Tunde puts one hand into his pocket, easy and slow. I have been thinking of travel myself, he says, and pauses, and waits. The man does not ask him more. Promising. Of course, there are 1 or 2 things I'd need for travel that I don't have anymore. Things that I wouldn't want to live without whenever I were to set off. The man still says nothing, but nods his head slowly. Tunde brings his hands together casually, then slides the notes under the blotter on the desk, so that just the corners of them are showing. Fanned out. 10 $50 bills. US currency. That's the key thing. The man's slow, regular breathing halts. Just for a second. Tunde continues jovial. Freedom, he says, is all anyone wants. He pauses. I think I will go up to bed. Could you tell them to send me up a scotch? Room 614. As soon as you can. The man says, I will bring it myself, sir, in just a few moments. In the room, Tunde flicks on the TV. Kristen is saying, "The fourth quarter forecast isn't looking good." Matt is laughing attractively and saying, "Now, I don't understand that kind of thing at all, but I tell you what I do know about. Apple bobbing." There's a brief roundup on C-SPAN about a military crackdown in this tumultuous region, but much more about other domestic terrorism action in Idaho. Urban Docs and his idiots have successfully changed the story. If you're talking about men's rights now, you're talking about them, and their conspiracy theories, and the violence of them, and the need for curbs and limits. No one wants to hear about what's happening here. The truth has always been a more complex commodity than the market can easily package and sell. And now the weather on the ones. Tunde stocks his backpack. 2 changes of clothes, his notes, his laptop and a phone, water bottle, his old-fashioned camera with 40 rolls of film, because he knows there could be days when he won't find electricity or batteries, and a non-digital camera will be useful. He pauses, then crams in a couple more pairs of socks. He feels a kind of excitement welling up, unexpectedly, as well as the terror and the outrage and the madness. He tells himself it is stupid to feel excited. This is serious. When the knock on the door comes, he jumps. For a moment, when he opens the door, he thinks the old man has misunderstood him. On the tray, there's a tumbler of whiskey, sitting on a rectangular coaster, and nothing else. It's only when he looks more closely that he sees that the coaster is, in fact, his passport. "Thank you," he says. "This is just what I wanted." The man nods. Tunde pays him for the whiskey and zips the passport into the side pocket of his trousers. He waits to leave until around 4:30 a.m. The corridors are quiet, the lights low. No alarm sounds as he opens the door and steps out into the cold. No one tries to stop him. It is as if the whole afternoon had been a dream. Tunde crosses the empty night streets, the dogs barking far away, breaks into a jog for a few moments, then settles back to a long-legged loping pace. Putting his hand into his pocket, he finds he still has the key to his hotel room. He considers throwing it away, or putting it into a postbox, but, fingering the shiny brass fob, he thrusts it back into his pocket. As long as he has it, he can imagine that room 614 will always be there waiting for him, still just as he left it, the bed still unmade, the morning papers by the desk in ungainly peaks, his smart shoes side by side under the bedside table, his used pants and socks thrown in the corner by his open, half-empty suitcase.
Audio guide for the Museum of Post-Cataclysm Artifacts. This climate-controlled case protects a piece of rock art, chiseled from its original location. It shows a male figure lying prone, while a female figure extends her hand towards his genitals. The display text reads, "Rock art discovered in northern France, around 4,000 years old. Depicts the curbing procedure, also known as male genital mutilation, in which key nerve endings in the penis are burned out as the boy approaches puberty. After the procedure, which is still practiced in several European countries, it is impossible for a man to achieve an erection without skein stimulation by a woman. Many men who have been subjected to curbing will never be able to ejaculate without pain."
Can't be more than 7 months left.
Ali. Roxy Monk has disappeared. Ali saw her at the party. The staff say they saw her leaving. There's security camera footage of her car driving out of the city. And then nothing. She was heading north. That's all they know. It's been 8 weeks. There's been nothing. Ali's spoken to Daryl on video chat. He looks terrible. "Just about holding it together," he says. "They've scoured the countryside for her. If they came for her, they would come for me," he says. "We'll keep looking for her, even if what we find is a body. We have to know what's happened. They have to know. Ali has had wild and terrible thoughts. Tatiana's convinced with a sudden upsurge of paranoia that Roxy has betrayed her to North Moldova and interprets every new turn in the hostilities as a sign that Roxy sold her out, even given the glitter to her enemies. Tatiana is becoming unpredictable. At times, she seems to trust Mother Eve more than anyone. She's even signed into law a measure making Mother Eve the de facto leader of the country if she, Tatiana, is incapacitated. But she's having violent fits of rage, striking and hurting her staff, accusing everyone around her of working against her. She's giving contradictory and bizarre instructions to her generals and officers. There has been fighting. Some of the revenge bands have set fire to villages harboring gender-traitor women and men who've done wrong. Some of the villages have fought back. There is a war slowly spreading in the country, not declared on a single day, between well-defined enemies, but spreading like measles. First one spot, then two, then three. A war of all against all. Ali misses Roxy. She had not known before that Roxy had found a chink in her heart. It makes her afraid. She hadn't ever thought of having a friend. It is not an item she'd particularly felt the need for, or the lack of, until it was gone. She worries. She has dreams in which she sends out first a raven and then a white dove, looking for good news, but no news returns on the wind. She would send out scouting parties to comb the woods if she knew where to look within 100 miles. She prays to the Holy Mother. Please, bring her safely home. Please. The voice says, I can't make any promises. Ali says in her heart, Roxy had a lot of enemies. People like that. They have a lot of enemies. The voice says, You think you don't have a lot of enemies, too? Ali says, What help are you? The voice says, I'm always here for you. But I did say this would be tricky. Ali says, You also said that the only way is to own the place. The voice says, Then you know what you have to do. She says to herself, Stop it now, just stop it. She is just a person like all of the other people. Everything will disappear and you will survive. Cut off this part of yourself. Shut off this compartment in your heart. Fill it with scalding water and kill it. You do not need her. You will live. She is afraid. She is not safe. She knows what she has to do. The only way to be safe is to own the place. There's a night when Tatiana calls for her, very late, past 3 a.m. Tatiana's been having trouble sleeping. She wakes in the night with bad dreams of vengeance, spies in the palace, someone coming for her with a knife. At these times, she calls for Mother Eve, her spiritual advisor, and Mother Eve comes and sits on the end of her bed and speaks soothing words until she falls asleep again. The bedroom is decorated with a mixture of burgundy brocade and tiger skins. Tatiana sleeps alone, no matter who might have been in the bed earlier in the evening. She says, They're going to take everything from me. Ali takes her hand, feels her way along the jangled nerve endings to the griping and disquieted brain. She says, God is with you, and you will prevail. As she says it, she presses, in a careful and measured way, on this part of Tatiana's mind and that one. Nothing you could feel. Only a few neurons fire differently. It's just a tiny suppression, a minute elevation. Yes, says Tatiana. I'm sure that's right. Good girl, says the voice. Good girl, says Ali, and Tatiana nods like an obedient child. Eventually, Ali figures, more people will learn how to do this. Perhaps even now in some far-off place, a young woman is learning how to soothe and control her father or brother. Eventually, other people will figure out that the ability to hurt is only the beginning. The gateway drug, Roxy would say. Now listen, says Ali. I think you'd like to sign these papers now, wouldn't you? Tatiana nods sleepily. You've thought it over, and the church really should have the ability to try its own cases and enforce its own statutes in the border regions, shouldn't we? Tatiana picks up the pen from her bedside table and signs her name jerkily. Her eyes are closing as she writes. She is falling back onto the pillow. The voice says, How long are you planning to drag this out? Ali says in her heart, If I move too quickly, the Americans will get suspicious. I meant this for Roxy. It'll be harder to convince people when I do it for me. The voice says, She's getting harder to control every day. You know she is. Ali says, It's because of what we're doing. Something's going wrong inside her head with the chemicals. But it won't go on forever. I'll take the country, and then I'll be safe. Daryl. The shipments are fucked up because of the fucking UN. Daryl's looking at the truck that's come back to him. It's dumped its bags in the woods, and that's 3 million quid of glitter bleeding out into the forest floor when it rains, which would be bad enough by itself. Except, that's not the only thing. They got chased from the border. They came rough through the woods to get away from the soldiers. But they gave them a trajectory, didn't they? If you're running from the border and you're heading in this direction, narrows down the options of where you might be, doesn't it? Fuck! Says Daryl, and kicks the wheel of the truck. His scar pulls taut. His skein hums angrily. It hurts. He shouts, Fuck! Again, louder than he'd meant to. They're in the warehouse. A few of the women glance over. A couple start wandering towards the van to see what's happened. One of the drivers, the deputy, shifts her weight from one foot to the other and says, When we had to drop a load before, Roxy always— I don't give a fuck what Roxy always, says Daryl, a little too quickly. A look passes between the women. He pulls it back. I mean, I don't think she wants us to do what we've done before. All right. Another look between them. Daryl tries to talk more slowly, in a calm, authoritative voice. He finds himself getting nervous around all these women now that Roxy's not around to keep them in line. Once they know that he's got a skein himself, it'll be better. But this isn't the right time for any more surprises, and his dad says he's got to keep it secret until it's healed. Anyway, until he comes back to London. Listen, he says, we'll lie low for a week. No more shipments, no more border crossings, just let it all go quiet. They nod. Daryl thinks, how do I know you haven't been fucking skimming? There's no way to know. Say you've dropped a load in the forest, who's to know that you didn't keep it for yourself? Fuck! They're not afraid enough of him. That's the problem. One of the girls, a slow, thick one called Irina, makes a frown and pushes her lips forward. She says, Do you have a guardian? Oh, this old fucking noise again. Yes, Irina, he says. My sister Roxanne is my guardian. You remember her? Runs this place, owns the factory. But Roxanne is gone. Just on holiday, says Daryl. She'll be back, and for the time being I'm just keeping everything ticking over for her.